Hello, my friends. We are live once again. Revolutionary Blackout. This is the Saturday live show that we launched here, and I'm super excited for this program. Last week we had Dr. Kareem Patesh on, Danny Haifong, and that's kind of what I want these Saturday shows to be. I want us to have conversations with a lot of different anti-establishment minded people to really explore, and to a lot of these ideas are like kind of like brushed over a lot in the political discourse, and that's why I brought Pasta and Misty. This is a great like when I put this show together, I'm like, all right, I think Craig and Misty would be great together. First time that we have Pasta on the show, so welcome, man. I'm glad you're able to join us today.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I've been waiting. I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm going to be on Revolutionary Blackout tonight. I made it, Ma. I got it now. Finally, I broke through. So, it was great having you on. I remember the first time we had you on our show, Dick, was Election Day. And that was before Fred Hampton Leftist was even started. I was seeing all your fire on your Twitter. And I remember we brought you on for a great panel. We had a great time. That was on election night as we were
I still remember that.
It was a fun time. And so it's great to, finally get on this show and get to speak my mind. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, that's why I had a lot of appreciation for you guys, because you guys were one of the first people that took the risk with me. I still remember that show. I was still very green. Like I tell people all the time, I never had really any plans on doing this. I learned roughly on the job, like people who subscribed to my very early like Twitch and YouTube days saw like me like on my tablet. I figured out like my camera angles and lighting was horrible. I'm like, God, you guys know I can rant though, so just stay tuned for that. So I wasn't even that familiar. I heard of you guys. I wasn't that familiar with you guys at the time, but I'm like, all right, cool. Ever since then, I've been following Convo Cows pretty closely, and then I'm seeing what you guys doing, like traveling abroad, debunking U.S. imperialist talking points. That's that real shit.
Yes.
And we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that later. And so we're gonna talk about that here later. But we also have good friend of the show. I used to joke around and say Misty is an honorary FHL member, now Revolutionary Blackout.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time coming. We got Misty back on the show.
Yes. Thank you for having me back. I feel at the very least, I'm like the mascot. I'm like the RBN mascot, maybe at the very least.
I remember when we first launched, and everyone who's been following our journey know the pains and struggle that we had against the algorithm. But I remember when we had like 500 subscribers. For anyone knew who he was, we had Misty there, words of encouragement from day one. So that helps out, especially when you first starting out. Someone like me who don't have any experience in broadcasting, to have that solidarity and support is important. And that's what we're trying to build here at Revolutionary Blackout, because the theme of what we want to talk about today is the new information war. I think a lot of people are sleeping on this as a giant important topic in terms of like the establishment tool to disrupt movement building. That's why this is super important to resist. And we see, and we got good friends. I know Unapologetic is the most recent example of YouTube just taking people's videos down. There are people whose videos been taken down that they posted like 3 years ago, and they just randomly find it taken down.
Yeah.
So my mindset is, they can't censor us all if we all stand in solidarity with each other as a media apparatus, and that's a new strategy. What we gotta try out that I haven't seen. This is the new left that me and CJ was talking about. I'll pass it to the panel. Any thoughts before I continue from you guys?
Well, I mean, anybody who knows me or follows me knows that this is something I talk about all the time. To me, this is the front line of everything else, because the information warfare, the propaganda that's fed to us, the narrative control that is forced upon us, it impacts our ability to fight back effectively for anything that we care about. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's healthcare, ending the wars, it doesn't matter. Police brutality, it doesn't matter. We cannot effectively combat any of those things if we aren't able to, speak freely and have conversations and create dialogue and build communities and have the information in front of us that we need in order to make educated decisions. And, all those things are really important to movement building, period. So the fact that, we find ourselves in this situation where, we're getting censored left and right. I mean, it's intense. And I mean, we've been trying to warn people for years that it was going to get worse. And here we are.
Yeah. Despite all the warnings, and I'll pass it right to you, Pasta. But despite all the warnings, and I knew it was going to happen, and you can talk about the theory of it all day, all you want.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I talk about the theory. I knew they was going to go after independent media. I knew they was going to go after leftists and socialists. But it's still jarring when you see it in action, right? Like when you see what happened to Unapologetic, when you see what happens to Harlan's media. When I see what happened to Combo Couch following it as well, like it's jarring. I know they're gonna come after us. But Pops, I want to get you back in here. What you want to chime in with?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Misty was saying, because today I was kind of excited to be with Misty, but I was also a little bit like, man, I wish there was somebody that I disagreed with more. You know what I'm saying? Because I was listening to Misty yesterday.
I got you next time.
We can fight, Pasta. We can find something to fight about.
Let me know when you find out what we differ on, so we can kind of
might be hard
talk about it. Because to me, that's what the new strategy is about moving forward. I wanted to come on your show for quite some time, because even though I think we're swimming in the same waters, Nick, I think there's a little bit differences there that we need to talk about. We need to debate, and we need to have adult conversations. Like, I don't get caught up too much on the left-right paradigm because, I mean, in America, I don't feel there's a left. I feel there's an American left, but there's no real left, right? Everybody's caught up in this culture war bullshit where they, just they're null and void of talking about resources and economics and how that plays a factor into things. So for me, starting off the new year is all about creating these conversations with people who have slight differences, because I think cancel culture is something that has been, thrusted upon us by the ruling class, because it's the most divisive tactic out there whatsoever. If you say, I don't want to talk to my neighbor because he thinks differently than me, then they win. Then they control everything as long as we're fighting with each other. So for me, like I said, even though I feel like we're swimming in the same waters, I thought there's little differences that we can get in there. We could have these conversations about, have adult conversations about, and hopefully that will increase the dialogue out there amongst the working class and the poor people. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and that's why I love coming on the show today.
Yeah, and that's why what I do as a citizen journalist, when people will say, why you have this person on this show, right? The best example is like the meltdown after I had Jimmy on. Like I had a lot of people get mad at me with a lot of different guests, but that was like the next level. And people were like, Nick, why are you talking to these people? I'm like, I'm a citizen journalist. This is what I do. I used to sell cars in Kansas in conservative areas. I used to talk to people who was hardcore MAGA people.
Yeah.
And I always try to tell people, like, the idea that you have in your head of like Ben Shapiro, these crazy right-wing media figures who I think are deeply unserious, that is not. I don't think that's I don't think that represents the vast majority of the average person. So I'm always open to have these conversations. And throughout my time having a conversation with people who have these disagreements, I learned that, like, if you actually talk to people and understand and ask the question, like, what is your goal? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? And try and really like probe. Like, you don't see these giant differences that a lot of people make it out to be, right? Because like I have people on my show, I'm not gonna name any names, right? But then I will have the reaction that some people will have, like, I cannot believe you have this person on.
You'll get it today.
I have disagreements with this person, but it's not nearly as bad as you guys are making it out, right? Mm-hmm. Like, me and Jimmy not aligned 100% politically, but it's not nowhere near the point where people are like, why are you talking to this guy? Like Pastor said, I'm gonna pass it right back to the panel. Cancel culture is an effective tool of the ruling class because they want you to fear your neighbor. They want you to hate your neighbor. They don't want you to build those bridges. So throughout this live stream, I'm very interested in continuing this dialogue and see exactly where we can reach common ground, what we disagree with. Because that's why I love that shit. I'm a nerd. I love talking about ideas and I joke with this with Misty all the time because Misty was one of the people that she wasn't popular with like a lot of progressives because of this, because she'd go hard against Bernie Sanders, right? And even in my time when I was canvassing Bernie, I was a Bernie supporter. I never was mad at that. I'm like, all right, this is new information. I didn't know this kind of stuff. So that's my mindset when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like, if you can push me to the left, if you can make me better on the issue, I'm all for that. But I also will defend my ideas if I think I'm right. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people get tribalist, and I think particularly when it comes to we've kind of celebritized politics, and so they're not just politicians, they're now celebriticians, and so it's almost like this hero worship. And so once you attach yourself to a political figure, it becomes personal. When they get attacked, it's almost like you're being attacked personally, I think, for a lot of people, and so they are unwilling to look past their own cognitive dissonance. They're unwilling to look past their own biases and just recognize the truth. And, that's really what should matter. When everything gets boiled down to it, you shouldn't be looking at a personality to save you. No one person is going to save the people. The people are going to save the people collectively. And it's going to have to be collectively. And that's why I love you guys so much, because you're not afraid to have conversations with people you don't agree with. And I get shit on all the time for suggesting that that's something that we should do. But I think that it is the height of ignorance to suggest that we can just huddle in our little safe space, feeling smugly superior to everybody and get anything done. That's just not going to work.
Yeah. And I think you've done that great, Nick, by the way. I just want to tip my hat off to you because, I've seen you go on people's shows with people I'm not too crazy about. I don't really necessarily align with the vanguard. I don't like what they have to say, but you'll go on that show, then you'll go on Jimmy, then you'll go here, you go there. And that's what we need to do. You know what I'm saying? It's not just good for business that you're making these relationships. It's important because you're having these conversations. And that's what needs to be had, these conversations. We need to continue to go on and on. To me today, my message will be no matter what, whatever we speak of, and I'm yelling it loud, I'm yelling it proud, that our number one issue is the ruling class. You know what I'm saying? It comes from Fred Hampton. We talked about Fred Hampton for a long, long time. We went to, Maryland. I think you're aligned to go over there, Misty, and go speak to Reverend Annie Chambers and talk to, what, a revolutionary Black Panther did, what they were doing, what they were about by the days. They understood the ruling class. They knew the ruling class was out there. They would never deny the differences we have culturally, but at the end of the day, it's about that ruling class. And that's why it's important for us to get in here.
Uh-oh. We lost
He was on fire too.
He was too. That always happens in the middle of my best rants. It's really
then when I come back,
there he is. You froze, Pasta.
Go ahead.
Oh, did he freeze again?
Yeah.
I think he froze again.
It's all good. Hopefully he remember what he was saying.
Yeah. No. There. Wait. Oh. Maybe. There you are. There you are.
Yeah.
You froze. Okay. You're back.
Yeah.
You're back.
You have to put fresh garlic in the marinara so that it gets this flavor. Is that where I was at? I mean,
I don't know. You were talking about Reverend Annie Chambers and how
I was saying that I was just tipping my hat off to Nick for doing the work. Not just as a producer to grow his channel, but to have these conversations, because we need to have these conversations, because once we stop talking, that's when it ends.
Yeah, I discussed this before, but the idea of cancel culture never really made sense to me. It never was my culture. That's never how we grew up. In the Black community, the idea that you just see someone oh my God, we disagree, you're done forever. We argumentative. That's the whole thing. We got a barbecue and your uncle has some stupid ass beliefs and you argue about it. Your cousin said some ignorant ass shit, so you argue about it.
And then you hug it out.
Canceling is something that I noticed based on the class divide. Once it's coming from someone who's very poor working class, a lot of it comes from East Coast and West Coast elites. I noticed a lot of the New York liberals. These people make $100,000, $200,000 per year. They live in gated communities, and their mindset is, if you have ideas that I disagree with, if you are quote unquote right wing, despite there are many hypocrisies on that, we got to excommunicate you. And the most ironic thing is that someone who is part of the disenfranchised communities, who they claim they are fighting for, my claim is, if you're one of these liberals who say, I will never have a conversation with someone who's a racist, I cut those people out. I have no tolerance for that. My argument is, you are doing absolutely nothing to help me in my community.
Thank you. Because
think about what that implies. The implication of that is saying, okay, I'm not dealing with this. I'm cutting this out of my life. That's your issue. And I'm argumentative. So I do like debating people about racism.
Well,
right?
And can I just say something on that? Because this has been really frustrating for me. Because to me, as somebody who is trying to be literally in community, I genuinely want to be in community with people in the Black community, in all communities. I'm trying to be a better ally, right? And for me, it is just so disgusting to see white leftists be like, nope, not dealing with that. Not my problem. Yeah, it is. That's a white person problem. That's our problem. We have the ability to walk into white spaces and initiate conversations that could potentially change minds. And that's your fucking job. All these people walk around like they got Black Lives Matter, hashtag Black Lives Matter in their bios and all this shit. And they proclaim to be, against police brutality and all these things, but they aren't willing to have conversations with their racist uncle. You're not an ally. I mean, that's just the way I feel about it. You can hate me for it, but that's the way I feel about it.
You're just making yourself feel better, but you're not helping us. But go ahead, Pasta. I think you want to chime in.
Well, I was going to say though, I think I want to point out that these latte liberals, these cappuccino communists, I like to call them, on the American left are still the minority, right? Most people don't feel that way. You know, I've been up and down this country now for the last couple of years. You know, I went to North Georgia, those areas where, you know, Reverend Annie Chambers would say, like, you know, she said we were poor, but these people were poor. And she was talking about these poor white people in like Northern Georgia, West Virginia, and stuff like that. Even though these white liberals, they have the biggest megaphone, they control the airways, they have their own TV, you know, they have MSNBC and CNN, they're still the minority. And I think that's something important that we have to factor in. Also, too, as well, I think when it comes to maybe a slight difference from what, you know, Misty is saying is that I think a lot of people, sometimes a lot of poor white people in this country, they feel like they're getting blamed for the direct oppression of black people sometimes because that's the way it's pitted on in the media or how it's told, whatnot. So therefore, they get into this whole situation. Well, how come you're blaming me? You know what I'm saying? Where there is an opportunity to have those conversations that Misty said. But then again, we get deterred away from who's really pulling the strings and who's keeping us at each other's throat. Reverend Annie Chambers told me this about back in the days when she went into that whole Las Vegas situation, when she went into a Klans rally and got the Klan to unite with a bunch of poor people, bunch of colored black poor people to get together and shut down the strip. She said they would give the white family $450 and they would give the black family $250. Well, somebody up high was doing that. And why were they doing that? They were keeping it to keep people pitted at each other. So I think at the end of the day, we still have to recognize who's pulling the strings, who's in power. You know what I'm saying? I say this all the time that, you know, of course, we're going to have that dumb, drunk, you know, MAGA hat wearing guy who's drinking Meisterbrow on his porch using improper pronouns. But that person doesn't have power. You know what I'm saying? The people who have power are the people we have to concentrate. Once we remove them, then we can all get in a room and decide what's best for all of us.
And those people are just victims of propaganda. I think that that's something we all need to remember. They've just been propagandized differently, and to be mad at the wrong things and the wrong people. And you can have conversations with them. And I think that a lot of people assume that if you say you're willing to have conversations with those to your right, that you want to work with literal Nazis. And I've never said I want to work with literal Nazis. There's a whole lot of people in between, like Bernie Sanders and a literal Nazi. There's a lot of folks in there that we could be talking to who, generally speaking, agree with us. They want very much of the same things that we do. They may have different words for it. They may think that we need to get there in a different way, but they all kind of want the same things. Everybody just wants to be able to feed their families, have a house, you know, have a decent life, have, you know, a decent standard of living. Everybody wants those same basic things. And so once you can reach across, you know, and it is, I don't want to diminish it, but it is kind of a superficial divide. It's a manufactured divide. And it's because the ruling class will do anything to avoid a class war. And that includes initiating a civil war, period. They will do that. That's 100% something that they will do. They have done. And we need to be mindful of who our real enemy actually is.
God, I miss having you on the show, Misty.
and you know, Nick, just to kind of add on to the whole class that we talked about, just really wanted to say that the last thing I want to say is that
damn it.
Man, he about to drop some heat too.
Yeah, every time.
Okay, I'm gonna just.
Here he goes again. I'm hoping we'll get him to like freeze frame in a really funny facial expression for a screenshot. That's a good one.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Trey could add that to his reaction meme thing that he made. Okay, I think you're back now.
Okay, I'm back. I was saying, I'm just going to say it one last time. All forms of existing bigotries are hyperinflated at times of economic distress. That's what I got to say. And that is a by plan. That's why if you keep the people starving, you keep them lacking resources. And
you froze again, Pasta.
So this is one.
Did I get my saying out?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, I know. You guys hit a lot of good things I want to add to as well, because it shows to the unseriousness of a lot of people who are part of the boutique left, as I like to call them, the elite left, that they push this divide. They want you to fear your neighbor, and anyone who who they consider to the right of themselves, they call them like a Nazi or whatever, right? And then they use that to immediately shut down dialogue. And the reason why I push back against it is different from the reason why I see a lot of people push back against it, because once again, I can use my position as someone as part of a disenfranchised community they claim they represent to debunk this, right? So their argument is, and this shows how unserious they are. Their argument is the idea of having conversations and working with people who have regressive beliefs and ideas, that is problematic. So you should just cut these people off altogether, because that's the best way to protect your community. So I don't even have to debunk that. I can just point out the fact that they're hypocrites. The same people who say you can't, oh my God, you have a zero tolerance approach towards racism. These people are quick to vote for Jim Crow Joe.
Or watch
people are
Vouch.
super quick to support the Democratic Party, who actually takes more money for the police, who actually implement stop and frisk and other regressive policies that siphon our wealth, right? So you guys see the hypocrisy there, and you see how they are actually wrong on the issue. The idea is they did paint one side as racist, while the Democratic Party is anti-racist. So they are wrong on the facts of this, right? So my claim is both parties are racist. So if you're going to be intellectually consistent, you shouldn't work with anyone. But we know that's unrealistic. And I am intellectually consistent. So I don't call them out for it. Like, all right, if you want to vote for Democrats, I disagree with that. But I'm not calling you out for like, oh my God, why are you propping up racists, right? I'm saying we need to build coalitions. And this is another reason why they're unserious. Because my claim is I do not work with people who have an anti-Black agenda. I refuse to work with racists. But I also penned an op-ed. My second op-ed, I explained how I think Medicare for all and nationalizing healthcare is one of the most pro-Black policy positions that you can advocate for, right? So if you oppose Medicare for all, the fight for Medicare for all, the fight for healthcare, how can you claim you're anti-racist? You guys see how I use actual real policy, real working class issues to connect these things? Other people use culture war issues, things that distract people. Oh my God, what's your position on this? Are you on red blue team? Oh, I can't work with you ever. We all know that's unserious. And the last thing I want to say, and I'll pass it back to the panel, the reason why they don't hit this, and what Pasta said, which makes me want to bring this up, he said that these people are in the minority. And I agree with that, because but the problem is these people dominate political dialogue. Like these are the people who dominate messaging, but they don't ever talk to workers. So we had a General Strike Summit about 2 months ago, and we had the union leader from Kellogg who organized in Michigan. And you know what he said on our show? And he said what he's doing and why they've been so successful is they organize people despite their political opinions, because they know they have a unified working class goal. So he said there's conservatives in their movement and there are leftists in their movement. But meanwhile, that same thing that he said, I have been personally attacked. Pasta has been personally attacked. Misty has been personally attacked for advocating for. They call us Red Brown Alliance for advocating for something that the vast majority of workers want to have happen. Yeah. If you ask the average people, I know I'm ranting here, but I'm passing to you guys. If you ask the average person, they want a multiracial coalition of working class people to improve their lives. I know I've done personal surveys. It's called canvassing. It's called talking to people, right? But sorry, I went on long enough. Do you guys have anything?
No, we need that. We need a multicultural coalition of people. That's the only way we're going to be effective. We need the numbers. We need it, period. End of story. It doesn't matter what you want. That's what we need moving forward. And I think what's really frustrating is that I think I even talked about this when I was on the General Strike Summit. All these people, all these leftists who float around Twitter and they're like, oh yeah, so-and-so's on strike, don't be a scab, don't cross the picket line. And I'm wondering in my head, do you support all of the strikers or just the ones who voted for Joe Biden? Because I guarantee you there's a lot of people who are in that strike right now who voted for Donald Trump. So do you support them too? Or because that's the hypocrisy. It's like they want to, it's very performative. They want to perform the beliefs of leftism, but they don't actually want to practice it. They don't actually want to, like wholeheartedly jump into it and be willing to, kind of make those coalitions. And there's so much leftism or racism on the left that when they're talking about, oh, you're if you're a Trump voter, you're an irredeemable racist. Y'all, have you taken a look inside your own movement? Because it's racist. There's a lot of racism within the leftist movement. I've seen it. I know, Nick, you deal with it all the fucking time. I've seen it. I mean, it's blatantly apparent. It happens on a regular basis. So, again, as you like to say, these people are deeply unserious. I can't take them seriously.
It's a cryptic racism too, right? Like it's one that's a little bit different. Like I didn't get it at first. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, Fiorella and John were kind of bringing it up to me. They weren't explaining it perfectly, but then I got to see it. It was kind of like, how dare you, Nick, step out of line from what Team Blue is saying in our messaging? And, who are you to say that stuff? And it's like, you're trying to speak for a man of color over here. You're saying that you're all for men of color, but now you want to speak for him. In other words, you only want certain people when they're in a certain position, whatnot. If it's somebody who can speak for themselves. And I witnessed this when I went out to certain rallies. I'll never forget it. I was in Echo Park where they were having this whole Echo Park uprising of sorts where a lot of homeless people were living there, and all these groups got together. And there was this one gentleman, this man of color, who was speaking, and he was actually challenging a governor candidate for the recall in his messaging. And a bunch of white dudes started yelling out, "How can you do this? How can you do that?" And he was just like looking at them at both sides, and I was like, dude, do you guys understand how racist you guys are being? You're speaking for this man. Let him speak for himself. So there is this type of kind of like on the left, this whole like, how dare you step out and speak for yourself kind of messaging that I just can't stand. And it is this cryptic racism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we covered it and we exposed it. It's probably one of my favorite things about having a platform, because it's one of those things a lot of people don't understand when you say that liberals, when a lot of the neo-progressives, that they are actually complicit with silencing people of color. Look at what's going on with Luna Oy and Voss. Like, he sick his racist white progressive fans on her because he's anti-imperialist. She's anti-imperialist, and she's been debunking CIA talking points on Vietnam that he disagreed with because he's a CIA plant, right? So that's what they do, and they undermine. They always say, "Oh my God, these people are nefarious. These people are easily to manipulate." You see always those racial undertones, as if we don't have agency. Like that's what people always hit me with. Despite the fact that I've been an activist for years now, I have a whole track record I don't brag about. Like my whole time giving speeches in black barbershops, how I got started. Like despite that, people who saw, like I use this example because he's the biggest example of this, but the people didn't like Jimmy Dore, right? So they saw that I went on the show a few times. I had him on my show, and then they erased all my opinions, all my activism as a black activist because I associated with Jimmy Dore. You see, they used a white man to erase the opinions of a black man they disagree with. Then they were saying, "Oh," and this is the shit that I saw white progressives say. They're like, "Oh, you're just trying to be the black fill-in for Jimmy Dore. You're just trying to be the black friend to apologize for his racism." I'm like, do you know what you're saying? You essentially call me an Uncle Tom, bro. You call me a token. And white progressives will say shit like that, and they would not even know what they're saying wrong.
Yes.
Right? And I showed this tweet before. I do it because it's educational. Like it was hilarious. I showed this tweet. This OK high white woman. Well, she was like, "Hell yeah, I'll call your ass Uncle Tom. You ain't to vote for Joe Biden." Like this is how the liberals, this is how people left us, well, quote unquote left us center. I don't accept that framing, but just for simple cases, these are the people who consider themselves left of center. They call themselves anti-racist, as long as we don't agree with them. Right. I don't agree with Candace Owens. I think she's a clown. But I see how they talk about her. I'm like, whoa, you guys can't say that. I can say that. Like they be like, oh, fucking Candace Owens told the white man Uncle Tom. I'm like, whoa, you white? What the hell are you doing? So anyway.
Can we actually mention that? Okay, because black women of color in general, because Fiorella gets it hard too, but black women get it the worst. Sabby gets it all the time. I see it. I mean, it's insane. Candace Owens. I mean, yes, we don't agree with her, but yes, I mean, it's intense.
Yeah. By the way, watching her have to answer that question, or even when she had to kind of like cover up for the Assange Snowden question, like, ooh, that was hard because, Candace Owens, you might disagree with her a lot, but when she says stuff, she usually says it with a lot of confidence. That kind of thing, watching her trying to like, well, I think Trump really doesn't, use the internet. And it was like, ow, like it's hard to admit that your savior is really not who you thought he was the whole time, huh?
Yeah.
That was funny. It's funny how the liberals push for censorship. I think this is a good transition because let's get into some fun stories now. The liberals push for censorship actually kind of backfired on their culture war on vaccines because Trump is a big fan of the vaccines. Like he liked the vaccines. And this is a theory I don't push too hard because I know it's kind of goofy. It's a goofy theory. I know it is, but I swear to God, if Trump won, I think he'd be the one pushing mandate. I think it would be the opposite. I don't have any faith in partisans, and I remember I tweeted that people were like, I disagree. I feel you. I understand, but the reason why I say that just to illustrate my faith in partisans is so low. Like if Trump sold that to them and sold it as like a patriot vaccine, and he would have been on Twitter tweeting it out. So it backfired them banning him on Twitter. Because maybe he would have been on Twitter giving a more pro-vaccine approach like he has been doing, right? And people say, oh, Trump, he did say that at his rally, but he was booed. But my response to that was like, yo, watch the full video. Like Trump advocated for the boosters, and he was booed, and he quickly got the crowd back in line. He was like, whoa, what y'all talking about? Y'all should be proud of this. Y'all should be proud of this. So my whole goofy thing is like, bro, if he was in charge, you would see like the liberals, they'd be super
they would be freaking out. Yes.
Yeah, but that statement is more a statement on like I think people just follow their leaders. I think I think it's a giant problem and one of our biggest problems. We see it all everywhere, right? But Pasta, you have something you want to say?
Well, no, I'm just saying it's just kind of crazy because I think the elites are behind the scene. I don't want to call them the elites. We called them the predator class in our group, right? The ruling class. Like they're just behind the scenes going, let's see what we can do. Let's see which end we can push it over here and stuff. You know, we've said this for a long time that we've always believed that Trump was part of the whole kabuki theater, right? This is what it's all about over here because when it came to the issues that mattered most, freedom of speech, freedom of press, Snowden, Assange, he punted. He went all around the country during his campaign. Oh, WikiLeaks. I love WikiLeaks. But
and then he had him arrested.
Yeah. Then he was like, I don't even know who WikiLeaks is. Like, get out of here. Then when it comes to the whole vaccine right now, he's pushing Big Pharma's little drug. You know, he's a vaccine salesman. And he was there the whole time. And this is a guy who supposedly got COVID before there were any vaccines. And he treated himself when he was back like that. What did he do? He treated himself with hydroxychloroquine, all these other drugs, whatnot. He doesn't even talk about that. I'm sorry. I don't want to talk too much about that on YouTube. I don't want to get you in trouble. But I mean, you know, he used these other therapies, and now he's all about, oh, take the vaccine, oh, get your booster, whatnot. He was a fool the whole time.
Yeah,
he was just so polarizing that the security state can implement take away more of our freedoms right now with more spying powers because of Trump derangement syndrome. He was the ultimate villain in WWE, and he played the ultimate villain in world politics.
I love that you bring that up, Pasta. Because I used to have a lot of fun with Trump supporters because I was banging my head against the wall the entire first term of Donald Trump, right? Because I would see how liberals would attack him, Russiagate, Stormy Daniels. I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Like you can attack Trump on so many things. I used to laugh at Trump supporters because one thing that Trump did great in the 2016 election, he would talk about the Clinton Foundation and the Hillary Clinton corruption, and he correctly called out how the Clinton Foundation took money from Saudi Arabia. So then that led them to be more favorable to giving them weapons deals. So then he rallied against this. The MAGA fan base rallied against that. And then he took office. Saudi Arabia funneled money to his hotels, and then he gives them weapons deals.
Yeah. The emoluments they could have went after him there. Yeah.
They could have went after him on so many things. But here's what I need. Here's what I need Trump voters to just take a deep breath, shake it off a little bit, and realize that you got Obama'd. Period. You got Obama. He lied to you. He gaslit you. He totally blew smoke up your ass, and he didn't deliver on a goddamn thing that he promised you. You need to come to terms with that, suck it up, and move on, please.
Yeah. I made a tweet very similar. I said, you know, we had Obama. We believed him. We fell asleep. I have a painting in my or a piece of art in my living room. It's called The Big Sleep, and it's Obama with a book sitting in the middle reading a story, and all the movements went to sleep. They're on the floor, Occupy Wall Street, you know, all of them. They went to sleep. But we got duped with Obama. You got duped with Trump. And I'm going to tell you right now who's duping these other people right now. He's a gusano anyways, is Ron DeSantis. Because now Ron DeSantis is changing his whole tune when it comes to the everything in Florida now. So it's going to get a little crazy over here too as well. We have zero friends on both sides of the aisle in Washington, D.C. Zero friends.
Thank God you guys are emphasizing that, because that's the message of the show. Like if you're, and I said before, like someone asked me before, like, are you interested in working with Trump supporters? And my answer was like, nah, not really, because like we can build a coalition of people who are like done with the system. And if you're a Trump supporter and you want to jump on the movement and you realize like, I like Trump before, but I think your movement that fighting against Trumpism in its forms, I will stand for. Yeah, welcome aboard. But I'm not taking the effort to try and win these people who are still under the spell of the two-party duopoly. I think it's like there's so many people that are fed up. I think it's a waste of time. And we covered it before. Morning Consult, for the very first time, ever since they've been covering this in the 80s, over 50% of the voter base is independent. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm like, I don't waste my time on the Biden bro. I don't waste my time on the Trump supporter. I make fun of them so they can snap out of their cognitive dissonance. Mm-hmm. And I hope they do that. But I don't make any concerted effort. I'd rather get a person who want to organize in their community, someone who like, all right, the system's not working for me. I want to give them the alternative, right? But I do want to transition this. I want to give you guys thoughts on this because I said one of the main things I want to touch on is the information war, because now we see Biden is massively unpopular. Like even the small stuff they do, right? Like them removing YouTube dislikes, like that's definitely because of the White House getting like destroyed in dislikes, CNN being destroyed in dislikes. So it's even the small stuff, and this is a claim I made before because I still remember growing up in high school during the new age of information and being super excited. Like this is how I became anti-war, because I was able to look at information about the Iraq war that I would never be able to get before, right? So I was like, damn, this is dope, man. We can be able to finally like fight the establishment. But don't get it twisted. They definitely made a great adjustment to the new age of information. Like they pairing up with big tech. Like you got Google, like Instagram, all these people, Facebook, they all one big giant monopoly. They are in bed with the ruling class elite in the capitalist class because they adjusted to this. And I know you want to chime in. Let me know. Just jump in when you can.
I'm like, yep, yes, they are. This is true fascism.
Yes. Can I jump in? Can I jump in for a second? Okay, because you guys know, obviously, if you know me, you know I advocate for Julian Assange loudly. And this dude has been warning us since 2012. If you haven't read the book Cypherpunks, I highly recommend it. But in the book Cypherpunks, I'll quote it here. I just pulled it up because I just tweeted this out earlier. He literally says, "The internet, our greatest tool of emancipation, has been transformed into the most dangerous facilitator of totalitarianism we have ever seen. The internet is a threat to human civilization." This was written in 2012. This dude knew what was coming. He tried to warn us and we didn't listen. And you're right, Nick. They have effectively, corporations have effectively captured our entire government. They have captured our media. They have captured every aspect of our governing bodies, everything. They control everything. We are essentially already living in a fascistic state. And we are way behind the 8 ball. We're playing catch up at this point. And so, you know, the idea that we're going to be able to vote our way out of it when they control all of the mechanisms is just silly. It's just silly. There's no way that we're going to be able to do that. We have to learn how to effectively come together and build outside that system. That's the only way that we're going to be able to effectively combat it, really, in my opinion. And Julian Assange, there's so many things. Afghanistan, he warned us about that in like 2014. He warned us about Facebook in 2014. He warned us about the internet in 2012. This dude was way ahead of his time. And it would be nice if just for a change, maybe we just try this for a little bit. We start listening to our truth tellers instead of allowing them to be demonized. Yeah. Maybe we try that just for a little bit.
Well, Misty, he's just one white dude. Misty. Come on. He's one white dude. Yeah, he's one white dude that pulled the curtain back and showed how racist this American
who used his white privilege.
Is. Yes, exactly. But
nobody has used their white privilege more effectively to expose the racist imperialist system that we are living under.
Nothing can be more racist.
Uh-oh.
Like, Julian Assange did such a giant favor, and he did such a great thing for like the Middle East, Arabs, Muslims, like the people that are victims of the war crimes that he exposed. Like that's something I don't see covered enough. Like the great amount of justice that he did for them, because now they know something that they wouldn't have known otherwise without his reporting.
Yes,
and they make an example of him. But I still continue. I see this continuing, and I see this and this is something that Assange supporters like Misty, Pasta, you gotta do a good job explaining this. Like this is just the start. Like this is like the preface of a greater war. So that's why when people say it's more than just Assange, like and if you're not advocating for this in this moment right now, where they're using the Espionage Act on Assange in an unprecedented way, despite the fact that we know like the chief source of their information against Assange was a liar. It was just shown that the CIA was planning to assassinate him, but you had the U.S. and the U.K. coordinate to extradite him despite that, knowing that he wouldn't be safe under their care. Like, this is the kind of stuff where I explain why we need an international leftist coalition. And I definitely want to get you guys on when we have the International Leftist Solidarity Summit. I think we're having that around March. Because, like, you see, it's a coordinated thing. Like, the UK is working with the US. You have Australian liberals or anti-Assange.
Ecuador, Sweden.
You got liberals in the entire Europe, liberals in Canada. Like, the entire establishment is united. So why do you guys think we can only have a left movement from California to New York? Even though, like, the left movement from California to New York is already weak as it is. And you guys think that alone is going to be able to challenge these power postulates? I want to see what your thoughts are.
Well, this is my question to you here. This is probably where there's an area of disagreement of sorts. Even though I consider myself to be a leftist, I actually call myself a leftist libertarian. I do have socialist views, especially when it comes to economics. I believe in Medicare for all, but I don't believe in necessarily handing it over to the state. I'd like to see an actual funding mechanism removing away the right. You can have a right to have insurance, but you have the right to not have insurance. I'd like to see that because I believe that healthcare is a human right. I would ban fracking tomorrow and immediately. But why are we so caught up on leftists saying it's a leftist movement? Why can't we say it's a populist movement? You know what I'm saying? Because there are some things in the conservative mindset. I think that we just come from the era of the George Bush neoconservative. This Ronald Reagan, this kind of awful foreign policy. That's a right winger. It's bad. You know what I'm saying? When I went to Nicaragua, the funny thing about it is that they're like, they have this true Marxism of sorts, this economic Marxism, this socialist where they're, money for education, healthcare, infrastructure. But socially, they're hardcore Christians. They're not going to legalize marijuana. They're not excited about gay marriage. They're not excited about abortion, whatnot. I see these people exist right there, and I would like to work with them too as well. So why are we so concentrated? And that's, I guess, is my question. I know it's great to have both you guys on to talk about this. Why do we concentrate on saying it's a leftist movement? Why can't it be a populist movement?
This is the kind of conversation I love as a political nerd. So I explained this concept before. I love talking about labels, but I don't put a lot of stock in them. And I know that sounds hypocritical, but allow me to explain. So as a nerd, I love discussing ideas and what they mean, the kind of ideas that people should endorse. So when I say I don't put too much stock into them, the reason why is because people can call themselves whatever the fuck they want. So I do think talking about labels is important because I think this is how we develop an intellectual movement. But I don't put too much stock on the labels themselves because you can have some guy who's a fucking shit lib who say they're a socialist, right?
I can name some. I can name some.
Yeah, we can definitely name some.
Bring Washington into this conversation. We're talking about him.
So yeah. I understand where you come from in your approach, right, Pasta? Because there are a lot of people who say, oh, I'm a leftist, right? Oh, I'm a leftist. And these people bastardize leftism to me. And then people are like, oh, you're a gatekeeper. I'm like, not really. Not really, because my bar is actually very low but specific, right?
Yeah.
So when I say leftism, I mean anti-capitalist and anti-imperialist, right?
Yeah.
And then some people will say there's a ton of people who don't agree with us politically, right? The people who usually snare us, they get mad at me when I say Bernie Sanders, AOC is not leftist, right? But that's factually true. Like AOC and Bernie are not anti-imperialists. So
we're anti-capitalist, if we're being honest.
Yeah. If we really get into the weeds, if we really want to get into it. Yeah. But I'll keep this simple.
See, wait, when it comes to that too as well, I always talk about the isms, right? Capitalism, socialism, communism. To me, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter as much. I think we should have a mixed economy, take the best of each particular one of those isms, and concentrating on beating back elitism, because I believe that's the number one problem is the ism. You know what I'm saying? And there are some things I think that nowadays, I think you will both agree right now that America doesn't really have a left, right? It has. There's an American
I think that's
left.
wrong though, Pasta, because you and there are leftists, like genuine leftists who live in the United States. We're just very unorganized, and the I like to call them the hipster liberals, the kind of faux left, the laptop left, the lockdown left. They are just louder. They have
bourgeois
managed to
left that Nick talked about.
and so they've hijacked the language and they've hijacked the labels. And I hate labels too. I really, really do, because I think they're very divisive. But I think that it does serve a purpose in some ways, I guess. But I think that the problem is just co-optation of language. Like, I mean, when Nancy Pelosi is calling herself a progressive and right wingers are calling Joe Biden a communist, words don't have meaning anymore. So that's why I like the Assange movement. We focus very much on being what we call post-partisan. Everybody's welcome. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what ism you subscribe to. And Julian Assange, I know that I quote Julian Assange a lot, but he has said our arguments over ideology don't matter. We can't have those conversations until we deal with the system that's designed to kill us all. You know what I mean? Like we have to deal with that first. We don't even know the truth about where we are. We don't have the full story. We have no idea what's happening around us. So until we know what's happening, we can't fully plan to go forward in a real way, in a substantive way. I mean, those are conversations. We're putting the what did they say? The horse before the cart. The horse is way ahead of the cart here, fans. We can't have those conversations. We need to deal with the system first.
Yeah. I think it's the cart before the horse, but I could be wrong.
Whatever.
Well, you got me on Rablats, so I gotta get you back.
There's so many important things in what Misty said there, because, and this is the point I'm making with the people who can just easily call themselves a leftist and progressive. And that's why when I say these people are not leftists, I understand what they are saying when they say, oh my God, you're gatekeeping. But I'm like, as I said before, my gate is not that high. It just, the left in America is so pathetic. They can't even pass that basic gate. So that's why the reason I bring this up, because that's is addressing Pasta's concern directly. Why call it International Leftist Summit? And I actually talked to Kareem Batesh. You guys know Kareem. He always on the International Leftist Coalition. He was just on Savvy. He actually hit me up too. He's like, I don't like the name either. so that's not the first person that told me that either. Pasta. Like a lot of people told me, I don't like leftists. Rome actually said, Rome told me, like, I don't like using leftists either. And I understand the argument. I get it, because what Kareem was saying, like, we need to emphasize the anti-capitalism, the anti-imperialist part. So he said we should call it the anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist summit. And I'm like,
long. That's wordy. Kareem.
Yeah, that's why I didn't like. I'm like, yeah, that's probably long, man. That's long, bro.
If you talk to a lot of conservatives, right, who are pro-capitalist, to them, they'll always say, well, it's not, we don't have capitalism here. We have crony capitalism, which has led to fascism. A lot of people on the right equate capitalism to choices, freedom. Really, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's why I'm saying anti-imperialist. Yes. Hell yeah. You call me an anti-imperialist all day. I've been an anti-imperialist from the get-go, no matter what. But,
and that's why. Yeah, that's why I understand why you like. I don't want to be associated with these people who call themselves leftists and when they're imperialists. Like,
yes,
they're not imperialists.
Yeah. Those are not leftists.
So that's why it hurts what I'm trying to do. But I'm also trying to do something that's kind of tricky that I'm not sure is gonna work. Right? I'm honest with you guys, like, because I think there is power in kind of reclaiming that, and also there's also another point of what Pasta brought up. I also want to get into. Like, this is such a good conversation. I definitely got to be back on, because there's so much to dive into this, because I also have a lot of fun calling out conservatives, because I live in a red state, and I take any opportunity I can to poke at them. So this is, and your argument is that we should build a populist movement with these people who have conservative ideas that are good ideas initially, and this is something I can agree to, and I can explain why I agree with it and why I think there's some flaws into it, because I do think there's some good concepts of conservatism. It's just the people are not conservatives. It's just really that simple. So I literally, when I talk to conservatives, I'm very tactical. Like, when I'm on my channel, when I'm on Twitter, I'm like, hell yeah, socialism all day, death to capitalism. But when I'm doing door-to-door, when I'm talking to conservatives, I don't even use the word socialist. But I would literally explain my ideology to them without using the ism, and they would be on board. Mm-hmm. But if I said socialism, they'd be turned off. Why? Why is that? Why would they be turned off? Just
because they look at it as more like an authoritarian control, right? That's
well, and I think it's again they get
they look at it the wrong way. Go ahead, Mindy.
They take it personally. They become personally attached to this ideology, and so when you're anti that thing, it feels like a personal attack. And I think many of them could be persuaded to think differently or to examine things in a different way. But if you come at them as I'm anti your thing, they're immediately going to shut down. They're not even going to listen to what you have to say. And I will say, Nick, I'm glad that you brought this up, because when you say I am a huge advocate for tailoring your message. I have, as an Assange activist, I've gone on a multitude of different kinds of channels, right? If I go on a libertarian channel, I'm using words like patriotism. I'm talking all about the First Amendment. I'm talking about all of these things, the Constitution and all of that stuff, you know?
Yeah, I just want to win, and that's what it is. I want to win people over.
I just want to get stuff done. I care about these things, so I want to get them done.
The best way to win things over is through economics. I'm sorry, it's still going to be the best bridge. If people are not stressed out and they're not fighting over resources, they're more educated, they're more relaxed, then they open up the door to more ideas, more ideology and stuff like that. I think when you keep people poor, that's how you keep people in their own corner barking at each other. So I still think the best way to fix some of these conservative ideas that I think they're, a lot of poor conservatives in these countries are just like fixated on, you fix it through economics. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah. A lot of that's just desperation, lashing out.
It is.
And
desperation.
I also want to finish on that point because, like I said, I like to probe these people because another interesting thing you said, Pasta, and like I was going to explain this more when you said there are good concepts that conservatives claim they support, and there's a part of me that agree with this, right? Like, and I use this against them, like, and I made this point many times on the show. I'm like, you guys say you for family values, like you guys say you fiscally conservative, like I can see the value in these things. But this is why I advocate for what I advocate. Like I'm calling for defunding the police because our police budgets are out of control. Like it would be the third-ranked military budget if you ranked it that way. So I'm calling the conservatives out on their principles. Where I'm like, if you're actually fiscally conservative, you would join me in this fight. And if you're not a fiscally conservative. I always laugh at Trump supporters. I was like, you're really a shit lib, right? And then I'm like, you guys say you represent family values. And this is to the point Pasta is making, right? These things are good, right? They sound good. But I'm like, if you support family values, that means you should support a living wage, a thriving wage, so you can take care of your families. You should support a 4-day work week. Honestly,
paid family leave.
So people can see their family, right? They can take them to Disney World, right? I've never been because my family never had a vacation. They didn't have the wages to do that. That's the pro-family approach. So do you see my strategy? And when I'm in different crowds and I talk to people in different ways, but when I talk to a conservative, I'm probing their hypocrisies and trying to drag them my direction. And so when they hear the term leftism, they may get turned off. But then I'm like, why are you turned off? I'm talking about anti-capitalism. I'm talking about anti-imperialism. Let's probe into your thoughts. And I think that create dialogue. But I went Randy. I went past it to you guys. So what you guys thought? What do you think?
No, I think you're absolutely right. But I think a lot of that, again, is just the intentional messaging. There's this intentional messaging meant to drive people into their corners and stay there. They don't want you conversing with each other. They want you to, grasp onto these ideas that you think that you hold. Like you genuinely think you have these ideas, but they're not your ideas. And most of the time, as Nick just pointed out, your ideas are hypocritical. There's this... The propaganda game in this country is unbelievable. The way that they're able to control the narrative, the way that they're able to pit MSNBC and Fox News and put those people in their corners and convince each of their teams that the other is the enemy. They're very effective at doing that. And I mean, this isn't something new. Noam Chomsky's been preaching about this for decades. And I know Noam Chomsky has his issues and I wish he would stop talking. But he was right about that. He was right about how narrative control is used to keep, like they've always said, you keep the poor white people happy by showing them the poor black person that has it worse than them. And then that's how you maintain power and control. And so they keep us all fighting amongst ourselves so that they can continue to rape, pillage, and plunder.
See, this is why I didn't want to come on the show with Misty. Now I have nothing to say because she said everything I wanted to say. Right? It's like the media propaganda and the bad messaging, right? You talk about defund the police. Now I'm not one of those guys who are all cops or bastard, not at all. But what I do see on TV, and when I watch all the channels since I've been on quarantine, I've been watching every single channel out there. You'll see the OAN or the Newsmax or the Fox. They'll constantly show look at these people just robbing these stores, whatnot, and now they're not being charged and crime's going crazy and it's out of hand. And then RT has this other documentary on showing the militarized police and what they do with this stupid, phony drug war, right? This crazy drug war where they raid the houses, the wrong houses. They don't find anything in the houses, and they're coming down the street with military-grade equipment, breaking in windows and going crazy. So all they show is both sides, and they polarize it right there. So therefore, we're just screaming at each other, and we're not really looking at the fundamental problems. I always thought that fund the police was the wrong message. I always thought it should be reimagine the police, rehabilitate the police, for definitely for sure demilitarize the police. They need to be taken away from that. That equipment needs to be taken away from them. But I mean, that is the problem. What's going on right now? Because you could easily say, at one hand, yeah, they're these cops over here. They're so polarized in what they do, and I mean, at the end of the day, they have to realize who they're working for. They're working for the ruling class. But then we see the situation where this drug war and all the money ties, the capitalist tie into the police departments, like you talked about, it's like the third biggest, military in the world, if you look at it that way and stuff. Like, we need to look at those things. We need to have these conversations, and we have to just, be able to listen to both sides speak and figure to come up with a good solution. Because, for me, I will remember when they went after Rand Paul, right? You know what I'm saying? They were like, say her name. And I was like, guys, what are you doing here? You're screaming at the one guy. And once again, I don't have a Rand Paul t-shirt. I'm not out there knocking on doors for him, stuff like that. But because what happened with Breonna Taylor, he tried to eliminate no-knock warrants. So you could just see how the messaging is messed up, because you're yelling at a guy who was one of the allies on the floor when it tried to come to police reform, because it was from a libertarian mind point of view. And he might not have the same reasons a lot of those Black Lives Matter activists wanted a lot of change going on, but he was still trying to change and taking away powers from the police force that he felt they had too much of.
And that's why I am very issue driven. Like I like, as far as building a movement, there are certain people I will work with for that. But as far as an issue, like if you want to fight to free Palestine, welcome aboard. If you want to fight to free Assange and protect press freedom, welcome aboard. I don't care about any of your other beliefs. Those are things I care about.
Yeah.
I want those things to be taken care of. And Spike Cohen actually dealt with a lot of that same stuff. He's great on qualified immunity, and the leftists will trash him and say that he's not. I mean, he's done a ton of work. He's been in my state, in Columbus, doing serious on the ground work for any qualified immunity. So, I mean, I don't agree with libertarians on everything, but if you're a libertarian who's out there fighting to end qualified immunity or police brutality, or you're fighting to free Assange, or you want to free Palestine or whatever, and we agree on those things, I care enough about that stuff to put my own ego aside and go get it. You know what I mean? Like, it's
the
not about
integrity world, Misty and Nick. I got to tell you, most of the people I work with now are Trumpers. When it comes to election integrity, a lot of my connections and stuff.
Yeah.
Because the left, the American left, played team sports when it came to the election, and they're the ones who are going to get ruined and cheated at the end of the day. Their grassroots movement are going to get cheated at the end of the day, right? You know what I'm saying? They don't understand that's why we need election reform. But this whole thing, it just seemed like so much kabuki theater, because now you have leftists actually standing behind rules that will eventually affect them in the long run, and they'll never win an election. They don't wonder why Nancy Pelosi still has her seat and Dianne Feinstein's still in office and Adam Schiff keeps getting reelected. Hello.
They just got cheated in 2016. Yeah. It's so they forget.
Twice.
Yes, twice. They got cheated twice. But because Trump, because it was a Trump thing, all of a sudden now they don't care about election.
Exactly.
Or our elections couldn't have been rigged. Our elections are perfect. Like, I've seen people walk around like that's a thing. Our elections are never good, ever, never, ever. Our elections are garbage. It doesn't matter who wins, who loses. They're garbage. If a 12-year-old can hack into an election machine in less than 10 minutes, your elections suck. You need election integrity. And if you're running for office and you're not talking about election integrity and how to fix those things, I will not take you seriously. I don't agree with electoral politics anyway, but I'm done with you at that point.
But that's the mechanism too for democracy. That's the mechanism of, we have a representative democracy. So if you can fix that, then forget about it. Then you can control anything.
Yeah, 100%.
So I want to get into this. I want to get into this because I want there's so much I want to add on, but there's a point I really got to move on. So I definitely want to cover the story because but I'm gonna keep going. It'll be a nonstop loop. So I'm gonna just go ahead and move on and share the story because this is what I was prefacing to begin with. Because we started the last conversation with we talking about the information war, how the establishment actually adjusted, and now we see this unbelievable political shift where you had the Republicans, and I shared this before, who was. And they still are very pro-authoritarian state, very pro-CIA, very pro-3-letter agency, right? Now it flipped in a way because of Trump derangement syndrome, right? So now you got the Democratic Party who trust the intelligence agencies. These people love Bill Gates as well. These people love the new social media push to censor people. Because their political ideology is so shallow, because they have no intellectual muscle to the argument, they have to censor people. That's what it is. So I want to get you guys' thoughts on this because this is the messaging that coming right out of the White House. And there was polls. I'm gonna do a breakdown. I didn't have a chance to really gather it together, but there are new polls that showing that Democratic voters are largely in favor of this new social media crackdown. Vast majority of independents, vast majority of Republicans disagree with that. I'm gonna show you guys a source very soon on that. But this is Joe Biden. I would love. I can't wait to get you guys' take on this. Let me mute my mic and then we'll watch the video clip and then we share. Right. So give me a second here. Wait, I messed up. 1 second.
Unfortunately, while our military is stepping up, as they always do, there are others sitting on the sidelines, and we're standing in the way. If you haven't gotten vaccinated, do it. Personal choice impacts us all, our hospitals, our countries. I make a special appeal to social media companies and media outlets. Please deal with the misinformation and disinformation that's on your shows. It has to stop. COVID-19 is one of the most formidable enemies America has ever faced. We've got to work together, not against each other. Unfortunately,
so I don't know if you guys saw what it said there. So let me read the tweet just in case you guys missed it. So what Biden is doing, he is making the appeal for the giant social media companies that have a monopoly on information as it is. Right? So he is proposing that they take quote unquote misinformation and disinformation down. I have a lot to say about this, but before
me too.
I want to get Misty fucked in.
This is insanity, you guys. This is fucking insanity. Joe Biden lies daily to you. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News lie to you daily. They will never lose their platforms. We can make a montage that's like 2 years long of all of the lies that mainstream. Rachel Maddow pushed Russiagate for 5 fucking years, and she never got a ding on her YouTube.
It would take a whole nother live stream. It would take a whole nother show just for us to log the recent live. Like, and we just went for like the last
just COVID.
year.
Just the COVID lies alone. The fact that, if you get vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. If you get vaccinated, you're fine. Your life will go back to normal. All of these lies that they told over and over, that the vaccine will prevent COVID. And then it was, no, it doesn't prevent it. It kind of makes it less severe. And then, you're right. Sorry. But just lie after lie after lie. I mean, these are the people who have lied us into untold numbers of wars, who have lied to us. Seriously, Jen Psaki lies to you every single time she steps to that microphone. And she's never going to get penalized for that. It's only going to come to the people who dare to step outside the establishment narrative, those who dare to speak outside the approved talking points. And that's dangerous as fuck. That's fascism. If you are legitimately fighting fascism, you need to fight back against this.
Yeah. Well, I
will get fired up. I'm fired up now.
Go ahead.
It's funny. It's crazy the fact that I even have to go be careful, Misty, right? About the
whole
thing, about what we're talking about, the fact that we live in a country right now where we got to be careful because we can get censored on what we're saying. It's just nuts, and what Joe Biden is doing is he's letting you know what they're about to do. They're letting you know it's coming even harder and further. And the reason why do they do that? Because they want to find people who will actually help manufacture consent for this stuff. We spotted this a long time ago. A lot of us were screaming when they took down Alex Jones, right? Once again, don't have an Alex Jones shirt, not an Alex Jones fan. But, what I'm saying, when we were saying, if you take him down for what he is saying, it's never going to stop. It's also why we talk about Julian Assange a lot, right? I'm saying? They're setting the bar. They're setting the standards. They're telling you what information you can hear and what you can't hear. And that is very dangerous. And that is where we're at. And like Misty's talked about all the time on our show just yesterday, the fact that we see a lot of people on the American left cheering this on, this is why I specifically call myself a leftist libertarian, because I want to emphasize the left part of the libertarianism when it comes to freedom of speech, when it comes to civil liberties, freedom of the press, free elections. I want that stuff to be front and center, because in this day and age nowadays, and it seems like it all started on Occupy Wall Street, when Occupy Wall Street was starting to spring out of control and people were concentrating on the economics, they brought in this whole culture war to keep people separated and fighting over these culture issues rather than concentrating on economics and concentrating on the fact that freedom of speech is huge. It's one of the most important things we have. We have to be able to have this discourse, because once we shut it down, then we are completely controlled. And the fact that we are censoring ourselves right now as we speak is scary.
Yes.
And the part that's incredible to me, what you mentioned, is the people on the left who cheer it on, right? The people who lack basic political intellectualism to understand that when we defend Trump for being banned on Twitter, that is not us saying that Trump is a good person. These people was unable to make that connection. Even Bernie got that issue right. Even Bernie said this is horrible, having Trump banned on Twitter. Even he got that issue. Even he acknowledged that you can't do that.
They erased a sitting president from the internet. That's so unbelievably dangerous. And I hate Donald Trump, but allowing social media and tech giants to just completely erase a sitting president is horrifying. That's horrifying. Everybody should have been outraged by that.
And you can call me a pessimist all you want, and I guess there's a part of me that is. But when I saw them do that and get away with it, I'm like, we lost. Like, fuck, it's over. Now we got to do a whole like fucking revolution to scale it back. That's why I really believe. I know it's hard to say, but when they get a former sitting president off of Twitter, they can get you out whenever they want. But Pasta, I know you want to time in. I want to get you in.
I was going to say that I think Bernie Sanders was a little fluffy with it. You know, he did say,
he's not perfect. He's not perfect. He's not perfect.
He said it like it had concerns from him, whatnot, but he wasn't front and center screaming against it, whatnot.
He still hasn't said Julian Assange's name, so fuck Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, he's not talking about the Nicaraguans.
Assange, but he's going to save us, guys. He's going to save us. He's got a bill coming for more masks. Okay,
so I hear you guys. I hear you
guys. Something we knew 2 years ago when this whole thing started. They're recognizing it now. They're just playing games with us at this point and stuff like that. But you know, this is also a problem too that's on the right as well. If you watch a lot of those hearings, and I watched a lot of those hearings where big tech was ushered to come to the floor of Congress, whether it be in the Senate or the Congress, a lot of conservatives, they were just upset they weren't censoring the right people, right? They wanted Iran to be censored more and in China to be censored more and stuff like that. It was only a small group of these libertarians out there that was speaking for freedom of speech. And let's not forget that Trump, when he went out there, he wanted to make sure that people went to jail for a year for burning the flag, okay? So this is a problem we have on both sides right now across the board, and it's something we have to get through to people. I think a lot of people on the right, the patriots, the conservatives, the libertarians who've been shut down, they're realizing how bad it is right now, and they should have this policy of free speech whenever it's possible. But I mean, you know, this is a problem that we have moving forward because the oh my God left. Oh my God, did he just say that? We have to censor him. You know what I'm saying? It's getting out of hand. And I think there's a lot of people out there now who want to speak loud, that want to speak proud, that want to say what they want to say. That's why the discussions are important, because we can provide these platforms for people to say stuff that we even disagree with. Because it was one said, I believe it was Frederick Douglass, that he said that freedom of speech, when you avoid it, when you chastise it, now you're hurting two people: the person who's saying stuff and also the person who would be listening. And we can't have that.
Yeah. I love that you bring that up too, because that's why I make the point to poke both sides when I see the hypocrisy, because the right wing, they pretend they are free speech warriors, but they are dead silent, and this frustrates me to no end. Like whenever you see socialists, whenever you see the activists that are protesting against the police state, whenever they're censored for social media, they are silent, and that drives me crazy. And a lot of us principal leftists, we came out when Alex Jones was censored. We came out when Donald Trump was censored. So I'm so tired, and that's why I don't give a lot of legitimacy to the quote unquote right wing populists and I have these discussions before. I don't think that's a real thing. And when I see them, like I would see them literally cheer for socialists being censored, while at the same time they say they are for freedom of speech, because when they advocate for these freedoms, they really believe. When they say freedom of speech, they mean freedom of speech for conservatives. This is something I kind of realize. But if there's someone who's really principled, yeah, you can give them props on that. Yes. But I also want to share this, because I did find a story. I couldn't find this earlier. I want to get you guys' thoughts on this, because this is what I mentioned earlier. We have this big information war that is going on, and it is like largely bipartisan. But this is also because this new shift that is happening, where once again the Republicans Democrats always supported the Patriot Act too. But the sell was Republicans supposed to support this big state and Democrats supposed to oppose it, right? That's the theater. Now they're not even hiding it anymore. Now Democrats increasingly embrace censorship from the government and big tech. and they feel this is the best way to control the flow of information. Because when it comes to things like economics, when it comes to things like pushing electoralism in their party, they know they can't stand on the battle of ideas, right?
Mhm.
They know they would be called out for their bullshit. The Twitter account Defiant L's, I love it because they call these people out for their hypocrisies and bullshit.
Yeah.
So in order to combat that, instead of like being better, just being better, instead of doing that, they said, well, let's just shut down dissent. And that's what we see partisans, as this story shows here. They are more in favor of that. And I'm talking about the people who are that 33%. Like when we make fun of Joe Biden's approval rating because it's so low, but that's still 33%, 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
What's
that 33%? I got to talk to those people because
I know.
I got questions.
33%.
Yeah. 33%. Let's say that. Let's say that.
Yeah.
So that's who they're talking about. The people who still on board the Team Democrat, they're for censoring people who go against the Biden agenda. And I love what possibly doing this whole live stream, so I'll do it as well. Don't get twisted. I believe the same thing for Trump supporters. Like if there are a lot of Trump supporters who, and there are people who did a lot of great on the ground reporting on Trump rallies. Whether you disagree with him or not, Jordan did a good. He talked to a lot of these people, and a lot of these people are.
I don't like how he did it though. He would find like the most ridiculous person in the crowd and like mock them openly to their faces, and that's not a legitimate representation.
Jesse Waters did the same thing for Fox when it came to Bernie Sanders too, as well. I mean, both sides do it, right?
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah, that's a fair criticism. But my point is, there are people on both sides who are for censorship. If it benefits your side, that's the point I was making. That you have the Democrats who are this stream who want to censor people who are anti-Democrat, but I do think there are people on both sides who want to do that too. Because if it means consolidating power, I do think a lot of right wing would do that as well. So that's go ahead.
That's what you've been talking about this whole time, though. Is there? It's consistency. These people are intellectually inconsistent. It's fine when it's their team. When their team does it, it's the best thing that's ever happened. When the other team does it, it's the worst thing that's ever happened in the world. And so, of course, they're going to support censorship when it benefits their team, their agenda. But then when it comes back for them, and we've seen this in independent media a lot. There have been people who have openly called for Convo Couch to be censored. In fact, and then when they got censored, when it came for them, then they wanted to lament on Twitter about how this is so unfair and censorship is so harsh. Well, then why were you just 2 weeks ago calling for somebody else to be censored because you don't agree with them? Be consistent. I cannot stand that. It is the most intellectually lazy thing is to just be inconsistent. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I mean, we're all, susceptible to having those blind spots. You know what I'm saying? Nobody is 100%. Nobody is, I'm going to be a hypocrite at times. There's times that there's going to be things that I say that don't, that have contradicted other things I've said, but at least attempt some intellectual consistency. And especially on something as important as this, because what really frustrates me the most is that it doesn't stop with the people you disagree with. It comes for everybody. And so, supporting it when Trump gets, taken off of Twitter, that is going to come for you. I mean, if they can take down, again, a sitting president, he was still president at the time. He was still in office. They wiped him off of the entire internet. That's coming for you.
Yeah. Well, so, first of all, I'd like to disagree with you, Misty. I think you are perfect. So let's just put it out there. You're amazing. Secondly, but, I always say, why? How could they do this? How do they pull this off? I think the problem when I'm going to just specifically about the left, right, is that they are controlled by their emotions. We call them the emotional left. Sometimes we like to call them the skinny jean left, whatever, but the emotional left, right? And this is a chess move. And if you ever decide to have a show with you and your crew on COVID, on Rockfin only, please invite me on, because I'd like to talk about this, because if you look about what's going on right now, when you could create a situation where you get a person believing what their neighbor does affects their health, then you have the ultimate mind psyop thing.
I was going to say, don't feel the need to censor yourself because we get demonetized on all our streams. That's why I tell you guys
this will get you taken down.
This will get you taken down, man. This will get you taken down.
Yeah,
like I don't like the idea of my guests not saying what they want to say.
I know.
But I guess we do gotta be careful though. But
I mean, you do because obviously we're having great conversations and we're all in that arena right now. We've all been flagged. It's coming. It's kind of coming hard. The censorship. You felt it. It's going to come even hard. But the problem with this whole situation, like I said, this is a chess move. And the way that you move the American left is you move them by emotions. You can emotionally move them. And that's what's going on right now because they have people talking from their emotions, right? You know what I'm saying? That's this whole sensationalism thing, with the Bernie people that are still there with Bernie. Like I still see those people that are sharing his stuff about the N95.
I don't get it.
Tulsi Gabbard, right? Like I was a big Tulsi person stuff. I've been very critical of her about what she hasn't said, where I get kind of emotional. The same thing it was with Trump, right, Nick? When you talked about in the beginning of the situation, like you're going after him for Stormy Daniels, you're going after him from this BS Russiagate thing. Go after for something legitimate. Like my criticisms of Tulsi are so different than what this, the emotional left was out her for.
That's how I was too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's how I was too.
It's the emotions. It's they know what they're doing. And that's what American exceptionalism is to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I was down in Nicaragua, a woman told me, she goes, our form of feminism is electricity, is infrastructure, it's food, it's resources. It's not this BS you guys got going on in the States. That's real privilege when you can sit there and talk about, oh my God, did you hear what this person said? We have to take them down. Oh my God, we have to cancel that person. That's real freaking privilege over there. Those people over there in the global South, you know what I'm saying? They need resources. They need food. They need all this stuff. That's what they're concentrating on. So that is something that we have to realize that's going on. And I think there is a form of like, this whole separation thing, when people live inside their own bubbles, even before COVID started, people were still kind of isolating themselves. They didn't have to interact in a society. And that's why their politics has become somewhat narcissist because they're by themselves. They're not thinking of community. They're thinking about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and they lock themselves in that bubble too, right? Where they don't want any challengers. Anyone who do challenge and step away from the narrative, they're evil, right? And I want to talk to more, and that's why I love that we have Josana as a member of Revolutionary Blackout, because she was one of the people that I was talking to her about, and she's been activist straight out of Brazil. When she went to America, like, you guys are deeply unserious. What is, like, she would see like all these ridiculous beefs, and she would see what BreadTube was talking about. Because obviously those are the people who are pushing the algorithm. So these are the people that they see, and they like shocked at how ridiculous the United States left movement is. Yeah. And this is why we do things differently on Revolutionary Black. And I think we have a different perspective here because we, like, when you look at me, when you look at Rome, when you look at JB, like we grew up in this late stage capitalism, right, where like. We talk about how the wealth inequality, when you look at Black and white families, is worse right now than it was at the height of the civil rights movement. This is why you see Black leftists, like especially young Black leftists, they are way more radical. We are the people they'll never platform to the point where we had to make our own network. Like that's why I gave Pasta props earlier, because he was one of the people that like I'm gonna roll the dice and invite this Black radical on my show and see what happens, right? So there's this divide because we are willing to advocate for like more militant, more effective strategies, like strategies that are embraced by the global South. Like we were willing to be more have more revolutionary discipline than what I see with the U.S. left that doesn't exist because we also live as victims of the system. And when you see people who are boutique, who are privileged, who have healthcare, they don't feel the need to march for Medicare for all like we did, right? Because they got healthcare. They have the privilege to start insignificant online beefs with people who they have small disagreement with instead of fighting the ruling class because they are taken care of at the end of the day. That's something that we know ever since we got into space. The difference between people who need urgent change versus the people who can take the AOC approach of having healthcare in 20 years.
Reform.
Right? And a lot of people ask me why I highlight these differences because a lot of people misunderstood and couldn't identify that we are completely two different movements at this point. So that's why when I see Pasta come on here and he asks why you want to identify as a leftist, I legitimately understand where he's coming from when he says stuff like that. Because there are a lot of leftists, especially in the States, that are unserious.
Yes.
Damn, man, I still got like two stories. I do want to take. I kind of do want to take this time to transition because you did mention the socialists in the global South, in Nicaragua, and you mentioned like their mindset behind organizing, and my mindset it has always been the same. Like, I always want to learn from my mistakes, and I made a lot of mistakes as an activist. Like one of them was putting too much stock in Bernie for one, right? and these things, that's a mistake, right? And I learn and I try to get better. And I read more literature, I read more history, I'll read more about community organizing. You guys been part of this like experience for me. People who follow my route. Another important part of this is looking at other movements in other countries and seeing how they're successful. How did South Korea get a general strike started? How did Colombia get a general strike summit? A general strike started out of nowhere. How in the global South in South America are they getting legitimately leftist, anti-imperialist leaders elected? Meanwhile, we got Nina Turner spending millions of dollars that can't beat fucking Chantel Brown. You guys see the difference? I want to ask you about that process. That's part of my question, and I kind of want to get both of you guys' thoughts on like the difference between the people who are, and whatever your like, and we can end it on this segment, like whatever your personal like assessment on how other leftists are successful globally, historically, compared to what we're doing now in the U.S. So essentially, I'm asking about the state of the left. What do you think the left should be doing compared to what other successful left movements? And we can kind of wrap it up on this topic. But I'll pass it to Positive first, and we go to Misty.
Well, it's funny because I remember watching you do the show one time, and you were talking about international leftism, right? And I was like, dude, what is this about? Like, why does it got to be left? Why are we going to force our form of leftists on other countries and whatnot? And I ended up watching the show. It was a very interesting show. And then I was able to go to the global South and understand the difference between left, right in the global South and left, right in America. And it's totally different. You know what I'm saying? And I think that what's going on over there, there's a concentration of, once again, economics. They understand in the global South who the enemy is. They don't blame people like Daniel Ortega or Nicolas Maduro or the Cuban Communist government, for all their problems. They know where the problems are coming from. It's coming from this corporatist, elitist class, and they understand that and they recognize that. So no matter what, the answer for us to get to where we need to get to is to understand who the enemy is and stuff. And that's the only reason why I brought this whole to the table about left. Let's not use left. Let's not use right. Let's use populist, because populist is supposed to be all of us together, one. You know what I'm saying? And no matter what we do, you know what I'm saying, we have to come to an understanding, because we didn't also just we talked about you invested too much stock in Bernie. I invested too much stock in Obama, Bernie, and Tulsi. So you know what I'm saying? I'm there. I'm out there. And why? I'm looking for hope. I'm looking for help. I'm looking for real change. But at the end of the day, for us to recognize what we need to do, we have to recognize the common enemy first. And that is the elite ruling class. And that's why sometimes we have to swallow our pride. What we think is ultimately most important for us, sometimes we have to come to some compromise, some common ground. We have to talk to people who think differently than us. And then we have to get in there. And once we eliminate them, that's what we have to get. Remember Fred Hampton's famous speech, all the power to all the people. And then he went through all the classes, races, and religions. That's what we got to get back. We, the people, and for us to get control, meaning us, the people, we have to get rid of this crazy elitist ruling class that are nothing but a bunch of predators that don't care about us. They don't care if we live or die. They don't care if we starve or we eat. That is what we have to focus on most. And once we tackle that, then we can get in that room and we can decide what's best: socialism, capitalism, communism, libertarianism, all that bullshit and stuff like that. But right now, our biggest problem is the ruling class, and we got to eye it together and get rid of it together.
Amazing answer, Pasta. I want to pass it to Misty. It's time for you to rant, my friend.
I have some rants for you. Okay, so here's the thing. There's a lot of this fantasy land where people think that we're going to be able to badger everyone into agreeing with us and following our particular ism. That's never going to happen. Humans have diversity of thought. They have diversity of opinion. They have diversity of beliefs. And that's a beautiful thing. I do not want everybody to think the same way. I don't want everybody to agree on everything. I don't want any of that. And so I think the trickiest part about, and I say this all the time, we need global solidarity against empire. And so that's really what it boils down to. And that doesn't mean that, the West, we're going to go into other countries like we've always done and, quote unquote, white savior it and, force feed them our our ideas and our opinions and our beliefs. Like I get this a lot in dealing with Palestine. People will say, oh, well, they don't agree with gay marriage and they don't. I don't care. Like, we have to deal with the fact that they're being, euthanized, essentially. There's, a genocide going on in Palestine. We have to deal with those things first. And we can't just assume that everybody's going to adopt our way of thinking. That's just not going to happen. We can present them with our ideas. We can, try our best to sell them to other people and convince them that they're the best way to do things. But we cannot force anybody to follow along with the way that we think. And I think that that's so much of why so many movements have failed in the past, is that, we try to, people try to strong arm everybody into thinking the same way. And that's just unrealistic. That's just, you're not going to get billions of people on the same page. It's just not ever going to happen. So we really just have to do our best, as Pasta was saying, to come together and recognize that we are in a fight together. We do have a common enemy. And that common enemy is something that needs to be dealt with together. We need to do that together. That doesn't mean that we have to go to dinner. We don't have to vacation together. We don't have to live together. We don't have to hang out. We just have to recognize that we do have that common enemy, and that we can come together and bridge those divides for, temporary purposes in order to deal with that enemy. And like I said earlier, on similar issues, if I have if you agree with me on healthcare, if you agree with me on Assange, if you agree with me on Palestine, I'm willing to work with you. I don't care. I don't care who you voted for. It makes no difference to me what party you belong to. All I care about is that this thing that I really care about needs voices and needs help. And if you're willing to come and join into that fight, then I welcome you. I always wonder, these people who, criticize me for having conversations with people I don't agree with. Am I expected to like show up at every action with like a checklist? And you have to okay, do you agree with me here? Do you agree? Oh, you don't agree with me here? Sorry, you can't attend. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely absurd. It's infantile. And I don't have time for that shit. I actually want to get these things accomplished. And if that means I have to drop my ego in order to work with somebody that maybe I have a disagreement with on abortion, or I have a disagreement with on whatever, then I'm willing to do that. And I think that anybody who actually cares about something should be willing to put their own ego aside and just get the work done. I mean, we have a lot of work ahead of us. And so, as much as we need, these solidarity movements in the States, we also need to have understanding and compassion for our differences, but also realize that globally we have a common enemy, and it's going to take all of us coming together, at least for that time, in order to deal with it. And, again, we're not all going to agree. We're not all going to, get along and be best buds. And that's fine. That's okay. That's the beautiful thing about humanity. As long as we're treating each other with compassion and care and understanding and patience. And again, I'm not, here come the people like, see, she wants to work with Nazis. No, I don't have any patience for Nazis. Are you joking me?
Serious.
Yeah, no, you're not serious, because there are a whole shit ton of people out there who are not Nazis and who are,
said they're Nazis and they're not Nazis.
Yes. I mean,
and these people like, go vote for Joe Biden. Yeah. Well, Joe Biden actually fucking funded actual Nazis.
Yes.
The Ukraine guys. Hello.
Yes. They're still actively working. I mean, there's this, seriously, it is exhausting to me that's even a thing. There's a whole lot of people out there who I disagree with. I don't even agree with myself all the time. I've changed my mind on a host of issues. Like, I mean, I used to be anti-gun. I've listened to people like Killer Mike and other people in the Black community about why that's a bad idea. And now I'm not anti-gun anymore. And so, I mean, everybody has their own journey. We're all on our own journey. We're all on our own way of figuring things out. And this is why I fight so hard for narrative control, because once we can deal with the truth, then people can actually make informed decisions and form informed opinions. And when they're not being sold a bunch of bullshit, and they're not being convinced of lies and misinformation and smoke and mirrors and all of those things. And that's when we're really going to be able to, come to terms with who we all are and figure things out. And like Pasta said earlier, once we start dealing with a lot of if we can meet and we can, as a whole globally, we could, at this point, we've evolved to the point where we could 100% take care of everybody's basic needs. We could 100% do that without question. That could happen today. That could happen. And if we do that, I think that then opens things up for more intelligent conversation, for more informed opinions, for more. And I think a lot of those, negative aspects that have been kind of ingrained into people in order to keep us divided divided so that they maintain power and control, those things fall away. And then we can evolve as a society. And I love when people are like, oh, you're such a hippie, like you want to work toward this utopia. Yes. Why is that not the end game? Why is that not the end game? Why is it not the goal of every human being on earth to work towards a world where we all get along, like not get along, but like can coexist peacefully, where we're not blowing people up for profit, where everybody's basic needs are met, and where, you know, people aren't being exploited? Why is that not the goal for every human being on earth? It's very bizarre to me that I'm seen as like a weirdo for wanting that. So, I mean, yeah, I think it is. And it's difficult. This is not going to be easy. It is not, because again, they have control over so much of the systems, and the information and all of that stuff is a huge part of it. That's why I'm glad we were talking about the information warfare. That's massive. That is such a huge threat. I saw somebody in the biggest.
One of my biggest concerns right now.
I saw somebody in the comments earlier say, why are you talking about mainstream media? That's not important. Yeah, it is. That's like one of the biggest threats is our mainstream media.
But they're still controlling the narrative. They're still controlling the narrative out there.
100%.
And they're silencing us, shadow banning us, taking us down, demonetizing us. They're doing it for a reason. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And let me tell you something. We got so many attacks when the Daily Beast wrote that article about the dirtbag leftists, and it was me in the streets quoting a Proud Boy and I think a Black Lives Matter person. And I told them, like, what are you guys doing? We shouldn't be fighting each other. We should be looking up. And it was the spirit of Fred Hampton, right? You know, who showed us that way to say, okay, like, you know, all the power to all the people. Let's recognize the enemy that's in front of us. Fiorella got caught, you know, on a video doing almost the same thing, saying, what are you guys doing? Look up. Stop that. This is what they want. They want a color revolution. They want us fighting each other. So once we started doing that, once you start getting that and understanding that, that's when the censorship, the demonetization comes. When you're willing to talk to people, when you're willing to get comfortable with uncomfortable conversations, that's when they're coming after you. Plain and simple, you know?
Yep. As soon as you start talking about uniting the workers, that not only both the red blue people are obsessed with, but once again, the progressive boutique class, they love the divisiveness and what Pasta is talking about. I've seen the attacks. I've seen attacks on Comrade House. I've seen the attacks on Misty just because they said we should work with people we had disagreements with. I was attacked. Like, do you guys know how absurd it was for me to see white leftists, white progressives, I should say, who I know make more than me, who I know live more comfortably than me, say that I'm some sort of white supremacist enabler. White people calling a black man a white supremacy enabler. They would do this.
Yeah.
And they would do it without hesitation. Now I'm gonna answer my own general question, which is addressing the theme of what we wrapping the show with. And it also kind of explains kind of our positions and why it makes the most sense based on history and how you change and how you advocate for change. I'm a big advocate of coalition building, right? And I mentioned before, like when you look at the March for Medicare for All, we had a lot of conservatives there, right? So we are building this coalition for healthcare. Then we should build coalitions for increasing wages. We should build coalitions to end usury, like the student loans, the military-industrial complex. That's the only way we can do it. So when you build these coalitions based on the solidarity needed to tackle and destroy this one issue. And then once you have a coalition that is built to tackle healthcare, then you have a coalition that is meant to tackle the new Jim Crow, the drug war. Then you have another coalition that is built to take on the military-industrial complex. Once you have these multiple coalitions that are attacking the establishment of white supremacy, once we reach that, and that is what we're working towards, your individual bad takes is irrelevant to me because we formed a coalition that is fighting and destroying white supremacy. That is where we stand, right? And the people who say that you can't do that you can't form a coalition to get healthcare for your community because Paul had a bad take in April in 2012 on Twitter. You guys know how stupid this sounds to me as someone who's struggling?
Yeah.
When you're not struggling, that sounds great. Oh my God, yeah, we got this cool litmus test. I feel great. I'm an ally, am I? I'm a great ally. That's unserious. Coalition building historically is how you get things done. And through building these coalitions, you know they stand with their community. Because what people will say against me they would say, "Oh, you must be weak on racism because you wanted to work with racists to get your community health care." Do you guys see the flaw in that? I just want to see if you guys see it immediately.
Yeah.
So these people who are willing to get my community health care, I'm supposed to demonize as racist, but you work with Democrats who refuse to get my community health care? And I can go down the line. That's the easiest example. I can go down the line, issue by issue, and point out how these people are hypocrites. The same people who fight against what we were saying now, they will also be okay with Ro Khanna being friends with Bill Kristol.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? They're okay with Bernie being friends with Jim Crow Joe. Yeah. So they're not even consistent. You see how we're consistent?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you guys last thoughts. I want to pass the process
and they're okay with Cori Bush being all chummy with Adam Schiff. Remember that? You know, it's just white supremacist president and like
Pelosi.
Yeah. Yes. Do you know what Adam Schiff did in the Ukraine? Hello. You know, it's crazy and stuff. But, you know, I mean, I just want to point out, and I'll hand the microphone over to Misty. You know, well, we started kind of getting a little of that going when we had that time in D.C., right, Misty, where it was the Assange situation.
I was just going to bring that up, Pasta.
Well, see, that's what we think. We finish each other's sentences over here. Assange, then we had like the fuck censorship movement, and then we had the Medicare for all and the forced to vote. Whatever the case may be, we were trying to find ways to combine movements to get more people together. Say, hey, we're coming out here for this. Let's have a rally at the same time so we can do that. And then we're both looking at each other's issues, right? We're both trying to understand each other. And I still think there's a lot of work to go when it comes to that. I think that the starting point for all that stuff, Nick, is right here, right? On this show, on Combo Couch, on Bitch. We get more people on different sides of the aisle, different spectrums, and we have these kind of conversations. We understand, you know what I'm saying? To me, you know, there's that book over there my sister has that she got White Fragility, right? And we talked about that. But do we have to have conversations? Do we have to necessarily always point out, you know, the differences with each other, or do we have to understand why those differences are highlighted? The reason why I use terms like populism, like I say, because it brings everybody together, because I don't want to immediately push anybody away. So, you know, I just find ways to get in there and have those uncomfortable conversations with people who think differently than us. And there's a lot of work to be done on that arena right now. We have to have people. You know, we can't stay in our own echo chambers. We have to have people we disagree with, and we have to try to understand why and then come to that agreement. So I think the work starts here, and I'm going to just continue to do that work. And thank you so much for having me on today. Sorry, Misty, go right ahead.
No, that's okay. It was beautifully said. And I think that's, I mean, just to kind of piggyback off of that, that was, as I said earlier, when we started Action for Assange, 3 years ago, it's crazy. But when we started Action for Assange, the entire purpose of that was to be post-partisan. That was the goal moving into it. And then as we kind of grew, we realized that there was this need to, and I call it cross-pollinizing movements. And so, you know, we've worked with the Fuck Censorship movement. We're in April, we have another event coming up that we're going to be working with the End the Damn Wars people. We collaborate with Reverend Annie Chambers, who does mutual aid work and is a former Black Panther. We're trying to like build these relationships. And again, it's not necessarily that, you know, we're going to be going to dinner with all of the people that we're working with or that we agree with them on everything, but we're able to find common cause. Like Pasta said, when we went, I think it was in January, it was Force the Vote, and it was Fuck Censorship, and it was Free Assange. And so it was like this gathering of people who were all there for different reasons, but who were willing to hear other people's causes too, who were willing to stand side by side with them. We went to the Force the Vote protest. They came to our protests. It was very community driven. It was very, you know, we're in this together. And while we may not agree with everything, let's stand together. Let's fight for these causes. And it's a beautiful thing. And I think that there's so much more that we can do in that kind of vein. I think that there's so many more opportunities for us to, you know, find ways that we can work together. I mean, I've, you know, through Magnus and through like Lauren Liberty, she's a libertarian, through Reed Coverdale. I don't agree with those guys all the time, but they're willing to have conversations with me. They're willing to have, you know, honest dialogue about, you know, issues that we all care about, and that maybe we have disagreements about how we get there. But for the most part, we're all looking towards the same end goal, and we're all looking to, you know, make it so that the world is a better place. And I think that once you find, I mean, not everybody has good intentions. There are, you know, bad actors in every situation. But I think once you can find people who you believe are genuine and who have their heart in the right place, And then you can have those open conversations with them and work forward to build those communities and to build those coalitions. And that's how you grow a movement. I mean, there's so many people who would shit on the March for Medicare for All because, oh, you guys only had like 20 people there. Dude, well, how do you think a movement starts? It starts with like 2 people in a living room having a conversation and being fed up, and then being like, we're going to go out in the corner and we're going to hold some signs, and then 2 more people join, and then maybe next month 3 more people join, and then maybe 1 person quits, and then maybe 6 people join the next month. And that's how you build a movement. You have to start somewhere. So anybody trying to dissuade you or discourage you or to mock you or tell you that the work you're doing isn't important, tell them to fuck off, because they're sitting at home in their living rooms doing absolutely jack shit. And so, you know, there's always going to be efforts to get you to quit and to get people to, I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've been attacked again for being willing to have those conversations. I don't give a shit. Come for me. I don't care, because I in my heart believe that that's the way that we move forward. I in my heart believe that that's the way that we are going to get any action whatsoever. It's not going to come through electoral politics. It's going to come from the people for the people, period. And in order to do that, we need to have uncomfortable conversations. We need to explain our positions to people who don't currently agree with them. I can't just go talk to an echo chamber and expect to win anything. I can't just go talk to people who are already going to agree with me and expect to move mountains. I have to go convince people who don't agree with me and get them to come to my side. And that's not going to be easy. And I'm not perfect at it. There are days that I'm much better equipped to do it and that I have a little bit more patience in me. And then there are other days that it ends badly, and that's fine. Like, you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to have 100% success rate, but you have to be willing to put in the work. And if you're not willing to put in the work, shut the fuck up. Stop coming at people who are willing to do that, because I'm all for constructive criticism. But if you're coming at me because I don't support your particular cause du jour, I'm one fucking person. If there's a cause out there that you don't think is getting enough attention, then go organize for it. That's all you got to do, is go organize for it. So, you know, all of the people who are going to try to distract and divide and criticize and be negative, all the people that were shitting on the March for Medicare for All, or who have been shitting on Action for Assange for years, those people are sitting at home in their living rooms doing nothing. And so, you know, I don't take any of their criticism seriously at all. I can't.
By the way, you want to just talk, I want to piggyback on that, the End of Damn Wars rally that was thrown by Magnus, who's a Boogaloo boy, and I'm sure that there are people, you know, I know there are people on some of the network here that, you know, aren't too crazy about the Boogaloo boy, whatever. We know Magnus personally and stuff like that, and had people like Olivia Rondeau show up, who was a hardcore Trump supporter, right winger, you know, Adam Kokesh, libertarian, whatnot. And then something amazing, I think, happened in Washington, D.C.
I'll just say I don't know a ton about the Boogaloo boy, but I like Magnus. Like, anything I've seen from Magnus
is great.
Everything I've seen from Magnus is solid. Like,
I will go to bat for Magnus.
I started interrupting Pops. I'll let you finish, but I've seen Magna like advocate for healthcare. I've seen him advocate for living wage. I've seen him advocate for ending the police state. Like, he advocated for ending the police state. He want to end U.S. imperialism. He want to give people healthcare. He want to give people a living wage. And I looked into him after the whole Jimmy Dore freak out thing, and I'm like, I don't get it. So anyway, I just want to say that. So I don't know anything about the Boogaloo boys, and based on what I did here, I don't like it. But this one individual, I think he's solid. Like,
But
so anyway, I'll let you continue.
I just want to say and that's the thing. Like, a lot of people hear things about them, they're not crazy about them. But to me, the most amazing thing is that, and against a lot of pushback, Max Blumenthal and Code
Kudos
Pink.
to Max.
What's Code Pink?
Medea Benjamin.
Medea Benjamin. You know, hardcore leftists, right? Showed up and spoke. Because at the end of the day, these are people who are totally ideologically opposed to them on the other side of the aisle, right? And saying, but they all had a common goal. Let's end these damn wars. For whatever reason, let's stop with the empire. And that was something that gave me a lot of hope this year, is seeing all that diversity together, saying, hey, we can do this together. We can get up there. We can speak for a common goal. We're all against empire, right wing, left wing, libertarian, socialist, whatever you want to call us, and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? That took a lot of guts from Max. That took a lot of guts from Medea. And I tip my hat off for them for showing up and doing that, because that's what we need. We got to get comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. We got to get dirty, baby.
And we have to be willing to drop our egos. It's not about, like, Medea Benjamin and Max Blumenthal were like, okay, this guy showing up, I'm probably going to get some shit for being at the same event as this guy. I don't care, though. It's about ending the wars. And that's dropping your ego. It's not about you. It's not about you.
I'm just tired of the unseriousness, man, because he held a rally to end the wars. And if you listen to the International Leftist Coalition, like one of the main theses of our show is you can't be an anti-racist unless you're anti-imperialist.
Yes.
And I truly believe that in my heart of hearts, right?
1000%.
So since I believe anti-imperialism is related to anti-racism, when I see someone hold an anti-imperialist rally, that's a anti-racist rally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the people who will call him racist and attack him, not the liberals, they okay with progressive squad members who funnel weapons to Israel, right?
Mhm.
They okay with the imperialist squad. So that's the shit that pisses me off. Like that inconsistency. Like if you're for, I don't want to talk to people I disagree with, and you don't vote for Democrat either, because I know I got friends in my community that like, I don't want to talk to racists, but they also don't fuck with Democrats. You see how they're consistent?
Yeah.
I can at least respect the consistency. It's the inconsistency that kills me.
Yes.
But I do really, I really do have to get to these super chats real quick. I'm gonna get read through and give you guys, because people bust my balls because I forget to read them sometimes.
You gotta read them.
I'm
You gotta read them,
terrible.
Nick.
So I'm gonna go
at the
through these
chat.
and then we can plug and wrap up. It was a great conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I
this is
definitely
fun.
got to bring it back. I definitely missed Misty and this first time we had pasta on. This was a very, very enjoyable conversation.
It's been too
We definitely
long,
gotta do it
Nick.
again. Yeah.
It's been too long.
We got to do it more consistently. So
Yeah.
thank you for super chat. I'm in. Hey guys, keep with the good work. All of you, love and appreciate you for having all these conversations this Saturday afternoon. And once again, I'm super excited for a new Saturday show. We had Cream Batesh and Danny Haifong on yesterday. Not yesterday, but last Saturday.
Week. Yeah.
We did like a Saturday edition of this.
That was a good one too. I love Danny.
Yeah, so we're gonna have another. Like I like having. Like I want to bring people on. You guys see, this is about a 2-hour conversation. We dive into a lot of different important like I really want to dive into the issues, and quick segments are not the best way to do it.
Yeah.
I love the long form conversations, right?
Me
So
too.
then me and Paz can really work out stuff, right? Work out the small disagreements. I love that shit. I love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for. Anyway, you go ahead, Pasta. You want to chime in?
No. I said, yeah, definitely. I love the conversation today. Thank you so much for having me on. This is a fun time.
Yeah, and then friend of the show, big shout out to Intermediary Fossil, recurring super chat. Thank you for that. Also for Turbo, thank you for your $10. This is why I say to folks who think they hate communism and love capitalism: do you believe that all people should receive the full fruits of their labor? Well, capitalists do not. See, once again, you don't even have to use these isms when you talk to people. Like I would talk to conservatives, and I'm like, you think you should be paid your fair labor value, right? They're like, hell yeah. I'm like, yeah, welcome to Marxism.
Yeah.
I don't say it, but that's the intro to Marxism, right? But you guys can chime in wherever you want.
Well, that's just, I think that's a great, we were pointing it out earlier that the labeling is that they actually agree with a lot of the stuff that Marxism entails. They just have been taught that Marxism is evil and that they don't agree with communism and that communism is bad, and so they're pre-programmed to just immediately shut down anytime they hear anything like that. And so if you present it to them in a different way, then you're able to initiate that conversation, and then you're able to kind of slow walk them into the fact that, hey, you actually agree with some socialism, my friend.
Yeah. See, the whole thing is I don't think they have to be really subjected to pick one or the other. I always say a mixed economy. It's very important too. You know what I'm saying? Because if you ask people, like you should really have on Nick Olivia Rondeau, right? She's a hardcore capitalist to her bones. I'm going to get her on my show eventually, and get her on there. She was at the End of Damn Wars thing. But you ask, like, why are you a capitalist through and through? Why do you believe in capitalism so much? A lot of people believe on the left that capitalists people because they want to have the opportunity to get rich. But there's a lot of people who just equate capitalism to choices, and they equate socialism or communism to too much central control. So these are conversations where we have to understand it completely, and we have to get in there. That's why it's like I'm never going to me, I believe the main problem is elitism, because whether it's communism, socialism, or capitalism, there's going to be a ruling predator class that's going to sway things in their favor, and they're going to have a control, and they're going to do what they're doing now, control all the resources.
Yeah. Any system can be corrupted. Doesn't matter.
System. So,
Well said. Talk about ideas. That's how you win people over. And then the funny thing is, once I start to win people over, then I might start nerding out with them, and then we can maybe talk about some theory. We can talk about social. Once I start winning them over, I don't like leading with, like Rome. Rome actually disagrees with me. Rome has a different approach. When he does it for the poor, he's like, I'm advocating for communism when I do this shit. and that worked for him, right? But
and
anyway,
that's fine. We all
different
have our
approach.
different approaches. I do want to point out just briefly that when I'm saying that I'm willing to have conversations with people I don't agree with, if that's not something that you are comfortable doing, I'm not asking you to do that. I'm not forcing anybody to do that. I'm not saying that everybody is equipped to do that. I don't think that everybody is built for those kinds of things. So I'm not implying that that's for everybody. What I'm saying is, if you're not comfortable doing it, that's fine. But stop getting pissed off at people who are willing to do that work.
Yeah, yeah.
Amen.
The term I like to use
I just
is
leave it there.
communism, mutual aid, by the way. I like to use the word mutual aid because you see a lot of Trumpers nowadays, right? Like you see these advertisements for these packages for food in case everything breaks down. You got to go off the grid. You know what I'm saying? You have to live together in small communities, commune living, communist, mutual aid. You know what I'm saying? There's like a lot of great positive things. And that's the beautiful thing about Rome. You know, Rome goes out there and does the work. Seeing that picture of Rome on the truck, just getting all clothes and shoes,
bottled water and pizza,
and all these little kids doing this stuff. It's like, that's the real deal over there. You know what I'm saying?
And what Rome does, what Rome does is very genius because I know, and if you guys know in the chat, let me know. But I actually forgot who said this, and I'm killing myself for this. But it was it was a communist thinker. There was like mutual aid without revolutionary discipline and knowledge, essentially charity. Yeah. So what Rome does with that in mind, when he feeds people, when he clothes people, he's telling people like this is the communism we advocate for, building the community. So when you do that, when you have mutual aid and then you selling communism at the same time, you breaking down the walls of what people think communism is. Right. So
he's not just preaching. He's not just preaching to people. He's out there actively doing the work and leading by example. And I think that that's important.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm gonna go to this next super chat because man, we dive into the ideas really well. So just to save you guys some time, I'm gonna move on to the next one. Donnie, thank you for the $25. Love you guys. Please check out the Zeitgeist Movement and the Venus Project. Have an interview with Peter Joseph, Lee Camp, and Ron Bacone. I love those guys. Know them very well. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't really know that much about the Zeitgeist Movement. I hear about it.
Peter Joseph is a Russiagator, and he blocked me on Twitter.
Zeitgeist. What's that?
No, I'm saying it wrong too.
Yeah, it's Zeitgeist. No, it's Peter Joseph. It's actually great. But he was following me on Twitter, and then he did some Russiagate shit, and I called him out for it, and then he blocked me, and I was like, oh,
that's what Russiagators tend to do.
You know, it is what it is. I still appreciate his work. It is worth looking into, definitely.
Yeah, like I said, I'll be honest. I don't really know that much about that, to be honest. Maybe I should look into it. Thank you for the super chat from Steph. Appreciate it.
Steph,
Misty, Pasta, and Nick. Thanks so much for this convo. You all are great leaders. We value your work. You make the world a better place. Appreciate the amazing work, Steph. Steph is a gem. I appreciate the comment. That's great. Thank you.
You need to go back on that show, Nick. Go back on there and talk some more and stuff like that. Build your brand because the goal of when we do this citizen journalism is to get as many people as we can. That's a
exploit
huge
every platform. Yeah, for sure.
Get on it. You know what I'm saying? That's a great avenue right there. You need to get back on there.
And you and Jimmy together are great too. You guys have great chemistry. And I just want to say, like, I know Jimmy takes a lot of shit. Jimmy and Steph both take a lot of shit. They are the nicest people. They are genuinely
they've been great.
The nicest people. I mean, they have been super kind to me, despite all my awkwardness and weirdness. And they have, I mean, seriously, some of the nicest people, most genuine people I've met. So I know they take a lot of heat and a lot of shit. And so just since she's here, we love you, Steph. And again, I don't always agree with Jimmy. I mean, I don't always agree. I don't know that I've ever disagreed with Steph, but there's some stuff that I'm like, I don't know, or maybe he covered that a little bit differently than I would have liked him to. But he does a lot of really good work, a lot of important work. He tells a lot of uncomfortable truths that a lot of people weren't willing to tell. And he's gotten a lot of things right way in advance of a lot of people. So I appreciate the work that he does. And
I'm 48 years old, by the way, too. And I appreciate them too as well. And I remember Bob Hope growing up, and I used to ask my mom, who is Bob Hope? What is he all about? And to think about what Jimmy did, how he made that transition of doing what Bob Hope did, except what Bob Hope's job was to do was to keep the troops entertained and keep them, their mind off of war and stuff like that. They were still a form of duping. Jimmy turned the whole system on its shoulders. He was going to talk to the troops when he went overseas, but he was criticizing the Bush administration and whatnot and saying, so there's something really that's to be said of what Jimmy's done and how he's transitioned and stuff from that whole kind of taking that torch from Bob Hope and moving on, whatnot and stuff. A lot of people forget about that. That's how he started, was during the Iraq war and what was going on. And he would go out right in front of, two troops and criticize the president himself. It was a whole crazy paradigm when you think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Very
I
true.
told you guys, as someone who value fighting against state violence, that is what Jimmy calls out. Like
Yes.
when he does his foreign policy segments, when he calls out the crimes of the Democratic Party, it's all rooted in state violence. And the people who dislike Jimmy, the people who smear him as a right winger, a lot of these people are complicit with the party that advances these things, right?
Mhm.
So I always appreciate the fact that he covered the police state, like during the George Floyd protest. While a lot of people shied away from that, he covered that as well. He does a good job on anti-imperialism. So
Yes.
this is why I want to talk to. This is why I invited him on the show. And when I talked to him for the first time, we had a blast. Like, and then I was on this show, and it was an honor doing this show a few times last year. It's fun because Jimmy, like, you guys see my stream, I like get really animated. I get really mad. And like when me and Jimmy was talking, like he would get mad, I would get mad. It was like two randy motherfuckers. It was really fun. So
Yeah.
once
That's
again,
my
thanks for
favorite.
Steph. I got nothing but great things to say about Steph.
Yeah.
Really
I
great
love
person.
Steph.
Love you, Brownie. Let's not
Steph.
leave
Yeah.
out Brownie.
We love Brownie too. That's true. Brownie's really the star. Let's be honest. Brownie's the real
It's
star
all
of that
about Brownie
show.
over here.
Yeah, it is.
I think I got all the super chats. So I want to thank you guys for coming. I want to give you guys one last chance to give final thoughts. Based on anything we talk about, any work you got coming up. Like I like just giving the last mic to you guys before we sign off. So I'm gonna start with Pasta since this is the first time you're on here. So it was great. We definitely gonna do this again because I didn't even get. And this happened every single time I have Misty on the show. I don't even get halfway through the outline. Like
It's
there's
'cause
so
I
many things I wanted
rant.
to talk about that we didn't even get to. I gave up a long time ago.
Sorry.
But Pasta, any last thoughts?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me on. I've been wanting to come on for a while, and I'm glad I finally got the opportunity to come here and speak with you, Nick. And, I just want to send love to the rest of the crew over there, too, as well. Rome, Sabby, JB Font, Compton J, all you guys out there. Thank you so much. You guys do amazing work and continue to do and stuff like that. But, my final message is that, the Combo Couch is going to continue doing what we're doing, keep having these conversations. And, that's all I have to say. I want to thank everybody for listening today. I mean, somebody also said today that Pasta, you have an automatic in. I don't know what that means. If you want to hit me up at thecombocouch@gmail.com, Cat Terrell, and let me know what that means. But
I want an automatic in. Why don't I get one?
I'm assuming it has something to do with me being a white male when I was saying something. But I want to know more about what it was and what she meant when she said those things. But anyways. Nick, thanks so much for having me on. And like I said, if you ever want to have a conversation about the Rone over on Rockfin only, please. I think that's
I want to do that because I have a lot of thoughts, man. But
you need to go rant.
I want to talk to. Yeah,
we got to
speak
about
freely.
Your crew. This is an area that I'm saying, like the Rockfin crew. I'm saying the group we have on Rockfin. There's a lot of great people out there. That were ahead of this from the get-go. They just looked at the receipts, The Last American Vagabond, Jason Burmis, Whitney Webb, Slow News Day. I'm saying? These are the conversations that need to be had. It's a shame that we can't have them on YouTube, but that's what's happening right now because there's a lot more to it than just the virus going around, and there's a lot of things we need to talk about, and I would appreciate the opportunity if you guys ever do have that conversation to let me jump in that conversation with on Rockfin.
We can set something up because we on Rockfin, but like, man, guys like me, man, Rockfin, all this stuff, man.
Yeah.
Sabby and CJ helps out a lot, man. Cause when it comes to all this stuff, I told you guys I'm still relatively new to this content shit. Like I like ranting, but we got to have you on Rockfin because there's some stuff we got to talk about. I probably can't do on YouTube.
It's crazy that we got to go over there to another space to talk about things. And remember, when we started this whole thing, everybody's like, "Oh, you imposter, you're into crypto, and you're really not an MMTer and whatnot and stuff like that." But I come from a situation where I didn't seek out crypto and said, "Oh, let me just go out and get involved in this. This is great and stuff." I was demonetized. We were demonetized. It's a year of demonetization from YouTube right now, where we can't even get super chats. Right? So we were sanctioned.
What?
So it's been a year now.
I'm so glad you just said sanctions because I think I'm the first person that said that this kind of censorship is essentially economic sanctions on independent media. I love that you just said that.
Yes. And that's why we're there. And like I said, it's just crazy that we have to go over to Rockfin or go over to Rumble or all these other platforms to have these conversations. But they're conversations I'm desperate to have with your group, and I'd love you to, if you guys do that, bring me on, or maybe I'll have it on my show and you guys can come on and we can talk about it. But we'll have to do it on Rockfin. But thank you again, Nick, for having me on. You know, I saw greatness in you when I had you on in the election show. I'm like, this guy's going to be a star one day.
I
And
appreciate
here
it,
you
brother.
are nowadays. You know, we did the same thing for Richard Medhurst. He was Poppy Chulerman when we had him on the show. The next thing you know, he's Richard Medhurst, and now he's all doing this and that. So
Yeah. You're a
Appreciate-
kingmaker.
That's
Pasta.
right.
Check you out.
the production side, elevate voices.
Yes.
It doesn't have to, if you put the ego aside, like you told us, right, Misty? You know, and you elevate the voices there. You know, that's what it's all about. If you could elevate those voices and get them out there, then you're doing it justice. It doesn't always have to be you behind the camera being the star. You got to put that producer hat on sometimes and just push to get that dialogue out there. And that's what we're doing at the Combo Couch.
That's why I have a lot of appreciation for what you guys do, and also for Jimmy as well, because once again, A1 rolled the dice when they invite my black radical ass on. So so I'm always down for these conversations, man. I think it's gonna be fun on the Combo Couch, and whenever we go on rock, and we still building that up. But Misty, like we need to do this more often.
Yeah,
we both extremely ranty. People always in the chat like, oh my god, nigga, talk to them much. So when Misty's on, I feel at peace because I know she's gonna do the same thing.
I love that. That's like maybe my favorite thing anybody's ever said before. I love that. Yay.
But anyway, Misty, what do you have coming up? Any last thoughts on?
If you guys want to find me, I'm on Twitter all the time at Sarcasm Stardust. I have multiple shows. I can't even remember all them. Facts on the Ground, Bitch with Comrade Misty, the Free Assange Vigils. So the Free Assange Vigils are probably the most dearest to my heart because obviously that's what I've been fighting for the past 3 years. So yeah, we haven't. I mean, just the only thing I really have that I want to like really impress upon people is in April. We have an event coming up. April 11th marks the 3-year anniversary of Julian Assange being essentially kidnapped and rendition from the Ecuadorian embassy. So we need people to make noise about that. So if you're in the DC area or if you can make it to DC in April, that would be hugely awesome. I would love to meet you guys. I'm awkward. I'll warn you about that first. I'm very awkward, but I still like meeting everybody. It's a lot of fun, and we do have a lot of fun. So if you can make it to April, that's great. If you can make it to DC in April, that's great. But really, I think just thank you for having me on, and also I just want to encourage everybody to support independent media, Revolutionary Blackout Network. Convo Couch, they're doing amazing work. Like there's so many amazing channels out right now, and like Pasta was saying, I am a huge advocate for elevating other voices. I try as often as I can to bring on people who are just starting out or who maybe don't have a huge channel. I don't have a huge channel, but here's the thing: when I was first getting started, Nico House, reached back. He didn't have to. He already had a huge platform, but he reached back and I had like 300 subscribers on Facts on the Ground, and he came on my show anyway. And he has done that for a multitude of people. And so I'm trying to pay that forward as much as possible and elevate as many other voices as possible. And if you have any desire whatsoever to start your own show or to start a blog or a podcast or whatever it is, do it. I will warn you, you need thick skin. But if you think that you have that in you, please do it, because we do need more voices and we need to stand together. Like I love the community that we've built amongst the like MCSC Network and RBN and Hardlands Media and so many other different independent news content creators, because we need that. There's strength in numbers, and when one of us gets censored, we all need to be loud about it, and we all have to fight back against it. So I love coming on your show. I love just hanging out with you. You're one of my favorite people. So hopefully we can do this more often. And obviously, Pasta, I love you. Yeah. And I love everybody in the chat. Like even the people who were like kind of trashing me, I kind of caught a couple of those. That's all right. It's fine. I'm used to that. I appreciate if you're going to be constructive, that's fine. But some of you are just turds.
No, they love you. They love you. We love you here. We love you here.
Haters are really just your biggest fans. They just don't know it yet.
Yeah, they it's funny. Like when you look at the people who hate us, the people who hate Jimmy Dore, they watch their shit more than a lot of his fans do, I think.
I know.
Like they be on Twitter with like fucking video clips. I'm like,
people call me a Jimmy Dore cultist, and I'll be honest, I used to watch a lot of Jimmy Dore. There's a lot of great content out right now, so I get behind. Like I'll catch a couple of clips or whatever. I don't get to watch him as regularly as I used to, but people will call me a cultist, and I'm like, homie, you know every word he says. Like
bro, they screen record his shows, and then I've been seeing them like, bro, you screen record it and then post on Twitter. Damn, you're a giant fan. Yeah. But anyway, what Misty says is true. That's what we do. That's what we try to do as well. We try to platform and create this new left environment. Me and CJ, we talk about this a lot. The new left, like and back in the day, and I know it's just back, especially when I was just a disgruntled worker. I used to watch a lot of independent media, and it was just a giant ego fest. Like who had the most subscribers? Like, and it was like it was all about like just the clout in the business. I think the new left, it needs to be us propping each other up because we need
Yes.
to understand that we need an alternative to corporate media, and that us as an independent media apparatus, working together. And I think this is just the start of that. So I love, and we're gonna have a lot more conversations moving forward. I appreciate everyone who watched as well. We had the JB's Font show tomorrow, and you guys know we had the Nick and CJ show every Monday. That's always extremely fun. The best way to support these shows, because man, we didn't even dive into a lot of stories I want to cover today, but all our streams, four of our last 5 streams, I'll check before I got here, were demonetized. So we got a Patreon description because that's the best way to support us. We don't like we talk about in meetings, like we don't expect to make money on YouTube. Like it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to support us, that's the best way to do it. The best way to help us grow is sharing. That's the only reason we even hit where we're at right now. Not because people find us on the algorithm, because you guys sharing stuff. So we appreciate you guys doing that for us. And please help us and continue to share. I think CJ had the goal. We're trying to get to 15K before the summer. So that's the goal. So thank you guys for watching. It's SocialistMMA. Sign out. Take care, guys.